Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, is there anyone here that thinks that this meeting has any issues, anything to do with Migdale? Because, okay, well, it isn't. Okay, it's our reorganizational meeting. We have a bunch of appointments to make and a comprehensive plan addendum that we're going to have a public hearing on. So that's really the purpose of the meeting, but you're welcome to stay.
It's not we discuss Migdale?
No.
Wait a minute, the comprehensive plan does impact Migdale. I think that's a misleading statement. If you're talking about doing an addendum to our comprehensive plan, that directly impacts Migdale.
This, right, but the meeting is not specific to Migdale tonight.
The town doesn't have an application.
Right, there's no application before us for Migdale.
Yes, we understand that, but you're talking about our comprehensive plan, and Will Guidera, who's behind Migdale, is going around telling people that he's getting in through it tonight. So I think it's fair for people to be listening.
And he is sitting there in the front of the audience, so it is interesting for you to mention that Migdale isn't.
He's absolutely not saying that to anybody in the town. It's an absolute lie.
If continue this,
that's just not true.
Okay.
I wonder if we can have people raise their hands if they want to speak and identify themselves, so we just don't have comments coming.
Could everyone please mute themselves on Zoom? And if you wish to speak, there's a spot where you may raise your hands, and at that point, the board will address them. But we're going to continue with our regular meeting, and we appreciate everyone's respect tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Joe, you want to give us your report?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for coming to listen to my report. The town and I signed a 284 contract. It is a contract by the department and the town to spend so much money. This year the budget is at $230,000. Normally there are projects within that contract, but some of the prices I've gotten lately, I'm not going to include tonight. We're probably going to go out to bid. Your salt went up approximately $10 and 14 cents a ton. Without much notification from the county. There is a clause in the contract that states that the county shall decide whether or not to go back out to bid. I budgeted about 8% increase. It was significantly more than that. I don't think it will impact us because obviously we've had a very warm December and January. To be as brief as I can, the last thing is I wanted you to know that there was a ton of garbage, and I mean almost a ton, dumped on Woodstock Road in a very notorious site near the S-turn off of 82. Somebody has been arrested. A police officer went down there, went through the garbage, found an address. I don't know if it's in this court. I would imagine it is, but so stay tuned. We finally got something on the books.
Good.
Any questions?
So,
Get the hell out of here.
so we're to sign off on this
Yes,
284, right?
Yeah.
And I'll leave it with Mary.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Can we just have a motion to sign?
I'll make a motion to sign the 284
Just
form.
the
Need a
form.
motion.
What, can we explain what?
Yes, that is
The contract.
saying that we will spend the money that's available in the highway budget for 2020. Yeah.
It's the same one we had last night.
Bob made the motion, second?
Second? Or you seconded?
No.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so would you both sign both
Yeah.
copies of that? Bob, you want to? A motion to open the public hearing on the proposed increase in the escrow fees.
I'll make a
Mike,
motion.
second.
Second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
They're listed below. The escrow deposit will be $1,500. $2,000 for projects under $10,000 in development. $5,000 for projects with $10,001 to $50,000 in development costs. $10,000 for projects over $50,001.
Do you remember what it used to be? What was it?
750.
750.
Yeah.
We have,
For a long time.
I
Yes.
remember. it,
Yeah.
we've engaged AKRF as
Right.
a consultant, and we are having to go back to people and ask for more money. So that's the reason we're requesting.
And they actually, they recommended these fees. These are pretty
Yes.
standard reasonable fees in other municipalities, so we're kind of getting up to date there.
Okay, so motion to open the public hearing on the hospitality addendum.
Excuse me, before we do that, can we ask if there's any comments? I'd like to keep the public
Or
hearing
you want
comments.
to, well, I'm going to leave that open.
Okay, Yep.
And the fees for now.
okay.
Okay. Motion to open a public hearing on the hospitality addendum.
I'll make that motion.
Joe, second.
Second.
Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, before we get into the actual public hearing, because this is our annual reorganization meeting, we have some business that we need to attend to first. We're going to get that out of the way, and then we'll entertain questions from everybody, okay? So bear with us. These are appointments to elected positions. Danielle Selowich, Recreation Director. James Finley, Building Inspector 1 and Zoning Administrator. James Brownell, Constable. Anthony DeBonis, Dog Control Officer. Kathleen Morrow, Clerk of the Assessor. Michael Olivet, Data Collector. Natalie Thorpe, Clerk. These are volunteers who point to their respective positions, which I will mention. Susan Meany, Planning Board Member and Planning Board Chair. Her term expires 12/31/29. Katie Briggs, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Her term expires 12/31/2027. David Greenwood, Town Historian, 12/31/2023. Margaret Schneibel, Member and Chair of the Conservation Advisory Commission, and her term ends 12/31/24. Shannon Ledoux, Member of the Conservation Advisory Commission, 12/31/2024. Pamela Scott, Conservation Advisory Commission, 12/31/24. Elizabeth Mandy, Conservation Advisory Commission, 12/31/24. Lisa Conger, Conservation Advisory Commission, 12/31/24. Brian Kelly, Recreation Commission, 12/31/27. And the following town council members and their respective liaisons: Bob Audia, Councilman Audia, Buildings and Grounds, Short-Term Rental Legislation Committee. Councilwoman Heaney, Planning Board, Conservation Advisory Commission, Joint NRI Committee. Councilman Murphy, Short-Term Rental Legislation Committee. Chair, Board of Ethics and Recreation Committee. Councilman Rochford, Comprehensive Plan, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Killearn Road Review. The regular meeting of the Town Council is the second Thursday of every month, beginning at 6 p.m. All the dates are listed. The regular meetings of the Town Planning Board, the first Tuesday of the month, beginning at 6 p.m. All the dates are listed. The Zoning Board of Appeals, their meeting dates are listed. We appoint the law firm of Vanderwater and Vanderwater as attorneys for the town. Authorize the supervisor to invest town funds in time or authorize investments as approved by the town board. Establish the official rate of mileage as the IRS rate, 65 cents per mile, 65.5 cents per mile for reimbursement. And appoint the Poughkeepsie Journal and or Millerton as the official newspapers. Approve the procurement of a blanket undertaking from a duly authorized corporate security covering the officers, clerks, and employees of the town. Any such blanket undertaking must indemnify against losses caused by the failure of the officers or employees to faithfully perform their duties or by their fraudulent or dishonest acts. Approve the compensation of all the employees within the limits of the appropriated funds established in the 2023 budget. All non-salaried full-time employees are to receive time and a half for hours worked over 40 hours per week when approved in advance by their direct supervisor. Establish the rates of compensation for all officials and employees as indicated in the 2023 budget without a previous audit from the town board. And a listing of all the employees and their salaries, elected and appointed officials. The following are interim successors in the absence of the town supervisor. First will be Robert Audius, second Michael Murphy, third Joseph Rochford. Per the Code of Ethics, any elected official, employee, or volunteer with an interest in any business or organization that might come before the town must declare that interest and provide a written notice of such interest to the town supervisor. Bank of Millbrook is the official depository of town funds.
And that's it.
And I think that covers yeah.
Gary, the one thing I would ask is for everything except the Bank of Millbrook, you can do this one motion and then
Do the bank separate.
Right.
So a motion to accept those appointments,
I'll make that motion.
except for the Bank of Millbrook. Mike,
Yes.
second.
I'll second.
Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to name the Bank of Millbrook as the official depository.
I'll make it.
Second.
Second.
Leslie, all in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Yep.
Gary, there are a lot of people out in the hallway. There's some steps. I don't know if that's helpful. People want to
If
go sit on the
they
steps.
Want to.
I don't know how many. But
There's some steps sitting over on that side if you'd like to sit on the steps instead of standing. You can go to the front.
sorry, Mike, I didn't see it.
Is there any comment on the proposed escrow fee increase? Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll have a motion to close the public hearing. Motion, second.
Second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
We want to go and do the committee or department head reports. Is Lisa here?
Lisa
Lisa.
is over there.
Yeah.
only thing that's kind of out of the routine that we're working on.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa Evangelista, the assessor. So there is new legislation that's come up. Well, I guess it's not totally new, but it's been revamped by the state relative to an exemption for volunteer firefighters and emergency EMS people. And we've done some analysis on it, we being the assessors, but also the county. And I mean, I think we should consider it, but the big caveat is that it's not in the real property law, but in the tax code, they cannot take the exemption on the tax return and take the exemption on their personal property. They have to live within the town. And in our analysis, we determined that it's probably not going to be more than $200 on the return unless the school chooses to participate in this exemption. So we can still go ahead and do it, but we have to do that analysis and let them know that they really shouldn't take the exemption unless it's over the $200. Otherwise, they can get, you know, the IRS or New York State, I'm sorry, would actually, you know, catch them on that and end up being to their disadvantage.
Yeah, I commented on it to you that I thought it was a great idea because of we're looking for volunteers.
Because we could get more volunteers, but I also don't want to be deceiving to them to think that, you know,
Exactly.
we're giving them something, but then taking something.
Did they already
back.
pass it, or did?
Well, it's something that we have to opt into. It's
right,
not required.
but it is passed.
Absolutely. There is
okay.
another version of it that some of the other towns have that they have to, I guess, change to this new program. But so, you know, it's up to the board to decide if they want to do it. But we'll have to let, you know, anybody forward that if it doesn't, if it's not over the $200, if they're better off paying it on their tax.
Why don't we take a look at the analysis, see how many people are involved and so on, and we'll discuss it, and then we can make a decision on it.
That's fine.
Okay, any other questions for me?
No.
Okay, all right, good.
Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at the February meeting, we will,
Make a decision.
excuse me, Lisa, do you know if there's two ways we have to do it, either by resolution or law, right? A local law?
Or you could do it by ordinance, one of the three.
Okay. And if we were to do it at the February meeting by resolution, would that allow residents to take advantage of it in 2023?
Correct. Any legislation, or be it a local option, ordinance, or a resolution, as long as it is passed by March 1st, which is our application deadline, it is effective for that year. So that's a deadline, and that doesn't just apply to this, it applies to any modification we're making to exemptions, which we have a couple of them on the table for next month. Our agenda was kind of packed, Mary, so we decided to table it to February's meeting, but we have more stuff coming next month. So, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Lisa. Lois, you want to give us your report?
Sure, thank you all for coming to my report. Very exciting.
Lois is our bookkeeper.
I'm Lois Witrom, the bookkeeper. Just the reconciliations, most of them are completed for December 22nd. I do for, except for a couple of the payrolls, the payroll account, the rec commission, the monthly revenue from the courts, from Betsy Sheepline and Jeff Feivelson have been submitted through November of 2022. The building department report has been received for December, as well as the town clerk's December report. I started using the new accounting software. The first payroll of 2023 was run in the new system. I ran the final days of December, the weekdays in December in KVS, the old system, with their 2022 rates.
Is this a better system?
This appears to be much easier.
Is it?
Yes, and then the new payroll in the new system. Entering the vouchers, it's one screen instead of going through 3 different screens with Is this your journal entry date? Is this when you, it's much
easier.
simpler.
Good.
So that's good. Tomorrow I'll try to spit out the accounts payable checks. I'll see how that goes.
All right.
I requested an extension on the filing of the 2022 AFR, just as a precaution. I don't foresee having to do it, but I just felt that why not? Usually they do give it to you, and this does give me a.
You did see where they gave it to us,
Yes,
right?
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And then in this month, I have to file all the payroll taxes, I have to prepare the W-2s, 1099s, all the employee forms that they need to be received by the end of this month. And I have attached budget amendments. I don't know, do you want me to go through each one with you, or?
No.
Basically year-end adjusting of line items. ARPA, Joe used ARPA money for one of his trucks for lights on his new truck.
The new truck.
So basically that's it. These are the budget adjustments. You don't need me to read each one and go through line by line. Okay. So hopefully I've covered them all.
Okay.
I cannot guarantee that. There might be more for 2022.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Otherwise, some make a motion to accept the budget adjustments.
Make the motion.
Leslie, second?
I'll second.
Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Lois.
Well, I just wanted to add to, there will be two different expense reports. One from KDS for the 22 vouchers that were still 22
Right, yeah, got it.
expenses. And then the new and improved enhanced report. It's
Okay.
called an operating report, which gives you, it's actually a simple report to look at.
All right.
But those cover the 2023 expenses so far.
Great. Thanks, Lois. Is James here?
Yep.
Where is he? Hey, James, you have the floor.
There he is.
James Finley, building inspector, zoning administrator. December, a little bit of a slower month like it usually is. 22 inspections and site visits for building, 4 fire inspections, 11 permits were issued, 3 were renewed. Still 9 expired permits, 12 fire inspections left to do that are either overdue, never been performed, or were failed previously. And 1 building violation was resolved in December. Zoning, slow as well, 4 municipal searches, 6 site visits. 3 complaints were received in December. 2 of those were more or less resolved in the month of December. The last one was received while I was gone for the last week of the month, and that's currently under an ongoing investigation. The only other thing I would note is that the maximum occupancy of this room is 52, and we're getting very close to that.
True. Okay. Thank you, James. Appreciate that. Can you take that under advisement? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you have to do something different.
Okay. Danielle, you have the floor.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danielle Owens, the Recreation Director. Last night I had my Recreation Commission meeting, and we decided that we're going to go over facility rentals, and we're going to make a new packet to present to the board to approve for our new fees for the gym, for the fields, and for the building at the park. I had a meeting, a site visit for the block grant that we applied for. The site meeting was with Michael Paratikos from the Rehabilitation Specialist of Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development, along with Bonimo Goose, which is the Community Development Administrator of Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development. We went over the building that we're proposing for, which is located at the park. and they were thrilled by the space and reacted very positively about bringing a senior program to the building. Mike made suggestions about how to make the handicap parking spots work and how to place them closer to the building. And stated that we didn't need railings walking up to the building.
Oh, nice.
And the decisions for that grant will be made in March. They suggested that we don't bother them with that. If have been made, they will let us know about it.
So my email to her today probably wasn't
They let us know yes or no, right?
Exactly. Yes, they will in March.
We started our basketball program last week. It was our first practices, and we had our first game on Saturday. It's a 10-week program for basketball. We have 83 registrants, actually 86 now, 9 teams, 18 coaches, and 6 referees. Within the next few days, we will be opening registrations up for summer camp and for for Circle of Friends toddler program at the building at the park, and a fly tying program that will probably be held upstairs. I wanted to propose a sibling discount for camp, a discount that would be given to parents that have more than 2 children going to camp, and that would be a 25% discount for a third and fourth and a fifth parent that's signing up only for just the camp program. It would not include the preschool program or the CIT, C2C program, or the before care program. So if you guys are okay with that, to approve the 25% discount, that would be good.
Sure.
Are you asking us to do that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure, I see nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
It's reasonable.
Yeah. I'll
Compared to what it had been.
Leslie made the motion?
Yeah.
A second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Mary, it looks like you have the floor.
Okay. We have, I'm Mary Alex, town clerk and tax collector. We have processed all of the tax bills and they were put in the mail today. So anyone who does not have a tax bill paid through an escrow company should be receiving their tax bills. If you do not receive it, please contact the office to make sure that your addresses are correct. This was not on purpose. However, I will be going on vacation next week, but I have Chrissy Briggs is my deputy, and she will be able to handle any questions or concerns that might come up. Let's see. Regarding taxes and payments, Mayor Colopy stopped in the office last week to see if the town would be willing to provide a payment to the village in February towards the fire contract, as we did last year. So I said I don't expect that to be a problem. When it comes in, we will make a payment to them in February and then again in March. The minutes of December 8th and 22 have been completed, distributed to the town board and to all necessary departments, and it has been posted to the town website. Lois has already mentioned reports that have been filed. I have just a couple of other things that are not on the agenda. First one is related to zoning board of appeals fees and potential planning board fees increases. We previously we mailed out notices to neighbors without having a return receipt, so there was no proof of that the mailings were actually done. So we have started that as a just due course. However, it is an expensive endeavor, along with the notice of publication that is printed in the newspaper. So there's some additional fees that have creeped up over the years. So I'll be doing an analysis with Kristen. I have information from James and Kristen on the amount of time they spend on applications. So we just want to make sure that the costs are being covered by the applicant and not by everybody in town who isn't putting the application forward. So in February, I will be giving you that.
Do we have to update our code where it's, because it doesn't address that, does it currently? About the mailing?
No, it's a little bit vague in the wording on that. So we will be looking as we continue to update those processes and update our zoning. If we need to make a correction, we'll do that.
Yeah, we probably should do that.
We can also, the board can take under consideration requiring that the residents or the applicant do that work themselves.
I think that's what the code says now.
Right.
And by practice, though, we have been historically notifying, which is, wonderful that we do that on behalf of the residents. But yeah, that's
What do
certainly
you mean,
something.
notifying the neighbors?
Yeah, we do that,
Well, we're
yeah.
required to do that, right?
Our code actually asks the neighbors to do it.
Or the applicant.
I'm sorry, the applicant to notify the neighbors. Yeah, I misspoke. Yeah.
So that's, we need to have conversations about that. Clean
Address
that
it
up.
in the code. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other item I have for the agenda is the Association of Towns meeting is in February. I failed to include that in the reorganization part of the minutes or the agenda. So generally the board allows as part of the reorg meeting that employees or elected officials may attend the Association of Towns.
Mhm.
So if that's something that you're interested in offering, we just need you to make that. And some of the proposed legislative programs this year are with the AOT is to support highway, bridge, and transportation funding, continue to support home rule, strengthen state and local government partnership by increasing local revenue sharing program funding, reform inequities in the real property tax cap formula, support affordable housing, support the expansion of cellular and broadband services. This one is probably of interest to our town. Provide all towns with the authority to set speed limits on local roads. Increase justice court funding. Prior written notice for trees planted or maintained by towns. Amend civil service rules to foster a more efficient hiring process for public employers, and amend prevailing wage regulations. So those are items that will all be discussed at the Association of Towns. And that's all I have. So if you want to authorize people to attend that, I need a motion on that.
Some question, I think you referenced elected officials and employees. I assume that volunteers serving on boards could go as well, for instance, the planning board or the ZBA. Just throwing it out for the town.
We don't currently have it budgeted for volunteers. But
Is it offered by Zoom this year?
I don't
as well?
know.
Okay.
I'll look. Yeah.
Because that might help from an expense perspective for us not having to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make the motion as stated.
Okay. Second to that motion?
I'll second.
Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to you, Bob.
Not much. Generators, probably end of the month or sometime in February, weather permitting. I got a hold of a wood specialist who offered to help us determine the type of wood we need to use to replace the ramp, so that when we get to the bid process, we can have all the information we need to do that. I have tried to reach a few people to take a look at the bathroom floor upstairs that needs to be replaced. It's not an emergency. Recreation, the new utility vehicle for recreation is ready to go. Waiting for John Deere to just finish filing the paperwork because of the holidays. It didn't get back to the company yet. So it'll be delivered as soon as they receive the paperwork, but we'll have it for spring. Thank goodness. That's really good.
We just, along with that, did we advertise yet for the job at the town park yet?
Not yet. I
Not
need
yet.
input from Joe and from Danielle.
Mike?
3 short subcommittee meetings took place. Danielle reported that Brian Kelly was reappointed to the Recreation Commission. There is a vacancy on that commission right now, and their board last night recommended James Eads for that position, and he was approved. So he'll be filling that vacancy. On the short-term rental subcommittee, which is a committee that has been studying the short-term rental issue in the town of Washington. We've been collecting data for about 2.5 years. There's been a committee formed that's met 5 times. We've had consultants involved. Our town attorney has been involved. We are at the point where we have a red line draft that we are reviewing. Simultaneously, we found out at our meeting this past Monday that New York State Legislature has a bipartisan, bicameral bill moving through their ranks for signature by the governor to regulate short-term rentals in New York State, giving all the parameters for what they can be used for, registration fees, mandatory insurance coverages, and so on. And the second part of the bill is they're looking to regulate the platforms on which the short-term rentals appear. And it's a pretty lengthy bill. We have gone through it. There are some of the definitions that from the state level we like that we're going to probably transfer into our redlined item. And we're hoping that by spring we will have a final draft to present to this board to incorporate a new coding system into our existing codes that are specific to short-term rentals in the town of Washington. The Ethics Committee. The Ethics Committee began to look at our current ethics rules within the town 2 years ago. We found that the document, although it existed and we were following ethical regulations as passed down from the state, the document was a little thin on its specificity, and therefore we put together a committee of 3 who spent 4 or 5 months looking at it, writing it. In October, we adopted it. It now applies to not only elected officials, but it applies to employees and anyone that is a volunteer on a committee that seeks approval from a board to be on that committee. Currently, there is an education process that's being scheduled. Everyone in the town will receive that education on the new ethics form. On that board and at that adoption of law, there were 3 members. We voted to expand it to 5, which created 2 vacancies, and I'm pleased to announce there are 3 individuals that have come forward that I'm going to schedule on the town board to interview to fill those 2 vacancies so we get up to 5. And that will be done hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So that's my report.
Thanks, Mike.
Did you see the email this afternoon from Elizabeth Betsy Sheequin?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
All right, so my report will seem a little bit redundant to the board because we were all there last night. But believe it or not, everyone, there is another subject in town that generates just as much interest, and that is Killen Road. And so we all met last night with a somewhat packed house with concerns about what the board will decide as to what we can do with Killen Road. So briefly, we feel that the roadway, a dirt roadway, is sometimes unsafe because of the upheaval after frost. And if anybody's driven on Killen Road in the spring, you know what I mean. It's very hard to drive on it. So our engineer Colliers gave us a presentation last night with what we can do as far as drainage, drainage ditches, crown on the roadway, and 2 ways of maybe surfacing it. So it was a very nice presentation. It went very well, but we have to soak up the draft report that Colliers gave us, and then in due course, another public hearing will take place, and we will decide on what we need to do with the roadway, right? I mean, that's more or less.
And we're gonna pass the hat around, so
Yeah.
help pay for it.
Yeah, it'll, so.
Yeah,
And
good.
that's that.
Good. Thank you. Right? I know it. Leslie, you have a.
Gosh,
Yeah,
I
you got a big one
apologize
there.
in advance. I have a bit of a report here. I'll try to narrow it down a little bit. So the planning board had their first meeting of the year last Tuesday. It was the first meeting with their new chair, Susan Meany. And Susan opened the meeting by thanking Ed Jorgensen for his 12 years of service on the planning board and for his service as chair for the last year. And I just want to have the minutes reflect the town's appreciation for all the work that Ed did on the planning board over his tenure. He was a very dedicated public servant, and we owe him a debt of gratitude. So thank you to Ed. It was also the first meeting with their newest member, Emily Abrams. Emily is a lawyer, retired now, but former partner at a firm, and she's already taken great initiative. She's working with Susan Meany on updating our forms. She has already attended the Association of Towns training on her own initiative, and Susan and I sat down with her last week to provide her with an orientation on joining the planning board. The planning board had 3 items on their agenda last week. One was a public hearing on the White Rock Farm application, which was just a renovation and expansion of a single-family residence. They needed approval of a site plan. I won't go into too much detail here. The minutes will be posted on the website, but that was approved unanimously. The second item was Upton Lake School. They were, again, coming with a site plan. There were still a bunch of questions that the planning board had, and they still need to get a variance for the ZBA, so they want to hold off on any decision until that variance's application is heard. And they have several other questions for them. So they're going to come back again in February with more information. And the third application was it was a workshop for a resident on North Tower Hill who wants to build or actually there's an existing barn. They want to renovate it into a guest house or in-laws suite. So they were considering, actually they had an application for a special use permit for a bed and breakfast because they only have 13 acres. So it's an accessory use structure. So now it was recommended by the planning board that they really should seek a variance from the ZBA. So they're deciding what to do. They have some time before they pull that application. And then the ZBA did not meet in December, but they have a new member too, Tate Kunkel. Tate and John Parisi and I met yesterday to provide Tate with his orientation, and I'm very, pleased to pass the baton. I'll miss my ZBA comrades, but Joe will be taking over the ZBA this year. The CAC met on January 4th, and they had a discussion about some of the applications I just mentioned for the planning board. Margaret Schneibel, who's the chair, and I also discussed the joint NRI, which I'll cover in a minute, and our climate initiative that's happening now in the town of Washington. For the joint NRI, back in November, the town of Washington, the village of Millbrook, and the town of Clinton got together. And you had to all be part of this Hudson Estuary to qualify, and you had to be an adjoining municipality. We all applied for technical assistance in doing a joint natural resources inventory, EC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, with the state. So we applied in November, and I'm thrilled to report that we were accepted in the program. Right. And we have our first orientation meeting with EC on January 23rd. And Clinton will be joining for that in the village of Millbrook. So that's an exciting exercise. It's actually looking at where our natural resources are and how that is reflected in our mapping. So it's a very important thing for us to be doing, particularly as we're looking at zoning. We also, if you recall, formally formed our Climate Smart Communities Committee in November. We applied to the Cornell Cooperative. They work with a lot of municipalities to help them do climate smart community assessments. Margaret Schneibel and I were meeting with Kelsey Peck from Cornell tomorrow, but Kelsey unfortunately has come down with the flu, so we're going to meet with her on January 23rd. And that exercise is really to work with the town to identify what steps we want to take or efforts we want to tackle first in becoming a climate smart community. And once we get sort of a preliminary lay of the land, then she suggested that we engage the clerk and the supervisor and then come back to the board. That's how I guess Cornell usually does it. So we will, more to come on that. Danielle already covered the CDBG grant. I just wanted to make a comment for the minutes to thank Deirdre Houston, who not only helped write a letter for that grant, for the CDBG grant, but she also helped us with the Bridge Culvert grant that we just are applying for, I think today or tomorrow it's due, in getting a letter both from her, but also from our new county executive. So I wanted to have the minutes reflect our gratitude to her for that. And in the minutes, you will also see these new expectations for Town of Washington Planning and Zoning Board members. This was drafted by me and Mary with input from Susan Meany and John Parisi as chairs of those boards. So I don't know if I need to read this out loud, but I would love if you all wouldn't mind reading it, perhaps maybe after the public hearings, if you don't take too much time. I'd love if you have no objections to be able to get board approval for that so that the ZBA can hit the ground running with this for their first meeting next week.
Yeah, I did. I read them up. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thanks, Leslie. Got through that quick.
Can we go back to two things, please?
Yes.
On Mike's report for appointing Eads to the Recreation Committee.
Yeah.
We need a motion on that.
I'll make the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And
I want to follow up Leslie's appreciation to Deirdre, but also for the Bridge New York program, our local state assembly person and senator, as well as other people who have written letters of support, fire department, Unionville town supervisor, as well as residents.
And State Senator Hinchy also wrote one.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a very strong
Dan said that's the most he's ever seen for a
it's great.
submission.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So fingers crossed on that.
Yeah.
It's a competitive one.
And it will save us $1.5 million to replace a culvert on Oak Summit Road. So we hope to get that. Okay. All right, that's all I have.
We did the escrow fees, right?
Yep.
So, let's see. Did I skip anything? I covered it all, didn't I?
Yep.
Anybody have any questions? No?
Did we vote on the escrow fee? I think we did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, you voted to close the public hearing.
Yep.
So
we
you
need to vote.
You need to vote to accept the fees.
Somebody want to do that?
I'll make the
Bob, second.
Wait a minute.
Joe, second. All in favor?
I just want to go back. We're going first to request a motion to declare the proposed escrow fees is a type 2 action under seeker. Therefore, we don't need to do any seeker action. We need to do that before we can vote on.
I'll make the motion to declare it type 2 act.
Thank you.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And then motion to accept the escrow.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I was just kind of caught on the type 2. I didn't realize we had to make a motion for that.
Yeah.
But
well, just
it is what it is.
Yeah, just to be consistent
Okay.
through what we've done in the past.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So
Thank you.
that concludes our regular business meeting. We'll now take questions, comments. I'm not going to sit here and time everybody, but I'm going to be very cautious as to how long. If you're going to speak, just be cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of people here in respect that maybe they want to say something too, so, yeah.
Can we also do people that are present first, and then
Yeah.
we'll go to the
Oh,
Zoom?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So the floor is open for questions, comments.
Do we want to just, this is the document that's been posted and that was presented to us by the committee that was formed by a vote of the board to look at hospitality in the town of Washington. And as a result of that presentation to us, we have to take this document and attach it to the existing comprehensive plan so that it becomes a full document that we can refer to. This is a book of recommendations. Hopefully everyone here has read them. We, in order to then take those recommendations and start to act upon them, we have to put them into the comprehensive plan. So what this meeting is looking at comments about what that committee found and recommended that are being placed into the existing comprehensive plan.
As an addendum.
As an addendum, not as laws within various sections. They're an addendum to the back, so they become a very valuable reference for us when we go to address certain issues in the town.
And just for background, for those of you who are not as familiar with the report or the process, there were 5 members or 6 members of the community
7
with differing perspectives and backgrounds and living in different areas of the town. They conducted at least one open house in the firehouse. They had focus groups with different members of businesses and residents. They provided surveys both by mail and that you could drop off here or that you could mail back to the clerk, and then surveys that residents could do online. Our consultant did comment that we had an incredible response rate for a town of our size, which is terrific. They took the feedback from all of those different sources, both the surveys that were done by residents of the town, the feedback that they got in the open house, and the feedback that they got from the focus group, and that's the recommendations that are in this binder. So,
one more bit of we need people to speak into the microphone if they're going to make comments.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I think introduce themselves and maybe where they live.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Can you come to the microphone?
Sure.
I read the report, and I think that you're referring, my name is Peter Morell, by the way.
And your address?
211 Stanford Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I read the report. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was very thorough. When I finished it, I sort of felt that every move that any hospitality had to make in the future, beyond, was it 10 rooms or 20 rooms, I can't remember which, is going to be very tightly controlled by the town. And I'm not sure that that's, having been a businessman myself, but should be proper and appropriate for business. Opportunities come along for development, and developers develop. If I sort of understand that there was a tremendous proposal made, and that it was not well received by the town. In any event, I won't take up much more of everybody's time. I did a little research and made a little list of historic castles, hotels, and private homes in Ireland, and would like to submit it to the committee.
Thank you.
And it's just an indication of old homes being converted to various sizes, most of them small, one of them large. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the comment. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Lisa Brown. Lisa Brown, 40 Windy Hill Road. Okay. 40 Windy Hill. I made a few copies of what I'm going to say, and I'll try to make it brief for the group, but I wanted the board to see the full thoughts behind what I'm going to say. So
I don't think you need to be right on top of the microphone.
Okay, sorry. I'm not, first time on the microphone.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks.
Am I blasting you?
No.
Yeah, there's two there.
And by the way, everything that we receive will become part of the public record, which will be visible.
Fine, that's good. Okay, I'll stand right here if you tell me. Okay, so I have taken a look at this 295 pages, of which 58 pages is the comprehensive plan of our town, inserted in the middle of it. I have two comments, well, really three. First, I want to refer to page 7, which makes the recommendation that inns should only be 20 rooms in size at most. Now, I'm not sure when the term inn is used here if it refers also to hotels, motels, or resorts, but I don't think a numeric designation is really right for what we're trying to accomplish here. We know there are two hospitality opportunities sitting out there. One is the Cottonwood and one is Migdale. They're both very different and they both call for more than 20 rooms. I think they're both, I know the new revised plan for Migdale, I had a fabulous tour of Migdale on Saturday. 45 rooms is the number, and I believe Ally Marcel said 35 to 40 rooms. There she is for her wonderful plan. I think we ought to take a good hard look at this 20-room idea and maybe squash it. I would encourage people to take the tour of Migdale and read the book that Will Gauderia wrote if you want to learn more about him. And I think the Cottonwood, Ally's not going to know that I know this, but I've been around a long time, and so Alvarez and Marcel was known as a very top turnaround consulting and investment business in the city. And they have a great skill set for taking on a business and fixing it and making it work. Yeah. We can't hamstring these people. They're going to put money into these projects and they need to make a profit. And we want hotels, motels, whatever, that look good, that represent our town. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I keep asking myself, despite lots of encouragement, only 690 people responded to the consultant survey. I think you and I must be a little off on that because you said a lot.
Well, I think like if you look at sort of presidential surveys, you know, when they call, they base an entire population of 350 million people on 1,000 phone calls. So our consultant was saying that 690 for the number of residents in our town,
yeah,
and with the amount of contact and opportunity that we gave people to respond, is really an excellent response rate in her experience.
It looks like it may be standard in that the prior survey, which is noted in the,
has actually less than
about the same. I think it's 18%.
It's a little bit less, yeah. And that,
well, this is 15 or so percent that we got as a response.
I don't know if it's 15%. I didn't do the percentage, but the numbers is
well, the probably
yeah,
whatever. So I'm just So anyway,
asked me about
here's my I just because I wanted to clarify that. That's all. So I have a problem with only 15% of the town participating because it says to me, what the heck do the other 85% of you think? So I don't know how much importance should be given to survey results. I think when you hire a consultant, you take all the information in, but you're driving the ship, but you guys are driving the ship. And you have to say what really works for our town. We know our town better than the consultants, and what doesn't. So I think that we ought to have confidence on our board and just let them go through this data and make the decisions. And that's that point, I think. So I was going to say the same thing that you just, you already probably read the last page maybe, about organization in 295 pages. I mean, this survey, the comp plan, the original comp plan, has 3 pages dedicated to a survey that was done in 2015. Okay, so I think when we update the comp plan, we just need to put 3 pages in there, and then everything becomes an appendix. what was I have one more point on here. Where does the amendment go? Okay, if you look in the first pages, page 9, 10 is where the consulting firm actually gives you verbiage for the amendment to go in the original comp plan. This is why I gave you guys a document so you can follow all this. Okay. There's no mention of a 20-room limitation in that verbiage. So it's only in the front, okay. And that amendment is being recommended to be added into pages 36 to 38 about rural land. Now, I think another place to stick the amendment in the comp plan is on page 49, promote tourism as an important regional driver for the village and whatever else it was. I think the original charge was about economic development and encouragement for the town. It really wasn't about land use. And so I think that's a better spot. I think that's all I have to say. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
May I make a comment?
Of course.
I would like to introduce myself as one of the 85%.
Name?
My name is Patricia Erickson. I live here in the village, and in as much as we don't receive mail door to door, my P.O. box is 1451. I discovered the Hudson Valley because I was married to a career Army officer, and we were at West Point in 63, 4, and 5. I came back alone with 2 children in 67. A neighbor lady who rode invited me to come with her for a riding lesson, and that was it. I came to Millbrook with 2 children, raised them, and have loved it every moment. I also sold real estate. So I sold real estate to a lot of people that paid a lot of money, contributed to the community, spent their money here, and bought, assuming that their properties were not going to be in a neighborhood with, what can I call it, a tourist attraction, whatever. In selling real estate, I became aware of a lot of things. I worked with town boards, I worked with village boards, I worked with developers, and I came to realize we live in a really kind of a bubble. I bought a house on Little Rest Road, right on the corner of Sutton and Little Rest. I got to know Harold Anderson, who was the cattleman for the Walbridge Farm. Harold explained to me that sometimes with runoff, he would lose calves because of the pollution. I remember when a group home was down to be built in Mabbittsville because of the concern about water pollution, the village aquifer. So yeah, it's not just the town and wealthy people having bought beautiful homes and wanting the zoning that they bought into to be respected and maintained. Yeah, there's a lot of wealthy people that are gonna come here and spend a lot of money, but that doesn't mean that the village has to change, that our water becomes polluted. Harold lost calves, unfortunately he's dead, and we can't ask him to confirm that, but I'll bet there's still some old timers around here that remember it. I know some of you, even some that I voted for, have been campaigning for this, but I really think that you all, campaigners and otherwise, you need to talk to the 85% and find out how they really feel about it. That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, I actually was quite wealthy for a period of my life. I spent a lot of money here in Millbrook. And the other thing I've seen a lot of fancy restaurants and inns and hotels come and go when everything has a season. You know, sometimes it's popular. I've known a lot of chefs. I've eaten in a lot of beautiful restaurants around the world. And I wouldn't tie my water supply to anything like that.
My name is Lois Mander. I live at 304 North Mavisville Road, and I will just follow up on the water issue, which I think is a major one. I'm mostly concerned and being here to speak up for the Migdale project. I followed the first proposal. I followed the second. I'm not supposed to do that now?
Well, we're talking about
the Migdale project that's been presented to zoning and planning, so really.
Well, then let me
talk about
hospitality. I would agree with the idea that we need not to limit new hospitality venues to just 22 rooms. I think it is limiting for the profit that people need to make who come here and have visions, the people at the Cottonwood and Migdale. I don't think that I would agree that the 15% who have responded, I was one, to the proposal for the comprehensive plan are as good indicators as some of the experts who we have heard from various quarters. So I think we need to. Right.
I'm Allie Marcel. I am speaking today on behalf of my husband as well, as both a full-time resident here in Millbrook. We live on Tower Hill, and also we are the owners of the Cottonwood Motel. Thought it was fitting to follow up that very lovely few words with some of our own. As opposed to kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the specifics and debating some of those nuances, I think it's more important to focus on exactly what we were able to glean from this exercise and the survey. I think, you know, there's a lot of work to be done and how we kind of let that rubber hit that road and meet those two things somewhere in the middle. But to kind of focus on some of the themes and think about what it is that we want to come out of this process. My husband and I both are very much in support of the survey and the outcomes and the conversation. I do think it's brought a lot more engagement, which is an exciting thing. Again, this is not our primary job. This is a passion. And so our objective is to work with the town, understand what really is going to be in service of it with the Cottonwood. And for that, we're really in a place where we've done our environmental work, we've done our design work, and we're really just waiting for a few more breadcrumbs as to how this is all going to come together so that as we come forward, we do so together and it works with the fabric of the town. I think one thing that didn't really come across in the survey, which I wouldn't expect to, but I think is worth noting, you know, we have operated on a very small scale for, I guess, a couple of years now, very minimal amenity. Basically, you get a key and a couple towels. And it's been really interesting to understand and observe who our patrons are. In all of this, we've talked about the residents, we've talked about the developers, and we've talked about kind of the future of all of this, and we haven't talked about who we're serving. And I think we've learned a lot in this process. We're serving people that already are captive. We are serving a cohort of people that already want to be here. So for us, we see members of the Millbrook community in terms of the Millbrook School, parents, trustee members who currently bunk up with faculty members when they come for meetings. We think of our friends who have had weddings here, who have no idea where to put everyone and want to get married on their family's estate. We think of the Millbrook Fox Hunt, to which I belong. We have done a ton of joint meets this year, which has been amazing to celebrate in the land and share the beauty. And it's inherently limited by our ability to facilitate keeping those people overnight. So I think to kind of reframe the conversation in terms of who we're looking to really serve, there's a wonderful population of people who already enjoy this place, and we're looking to support that. I think we're missing that last little link in converting that audience into an overnight audience, an audience that wants to stay here for more than just one day and continue to engage in the things that we love about it. So I think that's just a slightly different lens and a slightly different piece of information that might be interesting as we think about how this all comes together.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Peter.
Thank you, Peter Doro, Russell Knowles here in the village. You stole my word, hamstrung. It's a perfect word, I think. And just a couple quick thoughts. I appreciate the town board's opportunity here. There's development happening all around us, in Connecticut, in Amenia, to our north in Hudson, other areas of Columbia County, in Statsburg, Ulster County, luxury developments popping up all over. I think this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do things smart and to do things right. Nobody wants a Best Western here. Nobody wants Silo Ridge. But I think there is an opportunity to not hamstrung our business operators here, and to allow them the opportunity to have more than 20 rooms for all of these different and great facilities we have in the area, Orvis, the schools, the equestrian stuff. It's nonstop. And Millbrook, as many of you know, has a long history of hospitality. Halcyon Hall had over 200 rooms. Cottonwood, I don't know how many rooms they had in the past, but quite a few. So I think this is a really great opportunity to do it right, to do it smart, to do it slow, but to not hamstrung our business people, to force them to do an uneconomic and impossible, and which will most likely fail 20-room inn. And the comprehensive plan, I read it as well. It is quite large, and it seems to be full of, at least the comment section, it's full of a lot of errors. And so to attach that to our comprehensive plan doesn't make any sense to me. A lot of the comments, people don't know the difference between the village and the town. A lot of the comments talk about the village aquifer being affected. As a village trustee, I know that's just simply not true. So to attach not true statements to the comprehensive plan, I think is incredibly dangerous. And then finally, I think there's a lot of people here tonight, partially because of this sort of shadowy group, Friends of the Town of Washington. I don't know who they are. There's no information on their website about who actually they are. I don't know where the money's coming from this group. And a lot of the comments seem to be almost sort of very similar. It's almost like they were coached about how to respond to this survey. So those are some of my concerns, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Anyone else?
Hello all. Hi. My name is John Stephanopoulos, and I have been a lifelong resident in the area.
You don't have to be on top of it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, you're doing
good enough here?
Yeah,
all right.
John, say the last name again.
Stephanopoulos. So, and I have been a lifelong resident in the area, and I'm speaking on behalf of my family. We own property in town and businesses in the region and Millbrook, and as well as we recently purchased Aurelia's restaurant, and we're very excited about reviving that building. Being in the hospitality business is very tough, and every detail counts, especially when you want things to be done well. So we are really happy to see that Millbrook has shown such a positive reception to hospitality development. It really is not easy if you want to do it right. We noticed that in the comprehensive plan it suggested that the room count be capped at 20. Having experience in the business, we advise that the number be reconsidered to a more sustainable figure. Typically, hotels like to be no less than 30 rooms, 40 being a sweeter spot, and with a few, of course, density and location being considered. We think that increase will bring in the right type of developers, operators, and investors in the area. Millbrook deserves the best. It is such a wonderful place to live and work. So our concern lies in sustainability in this next chapter for new businesses, and keeping in mind the balancing act of simultaneously maintaining the integrity and character of our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just make a comment about the plan itself, and I think what the report's actually saying? It says it's a recommendation for 20 rooms. It also says that there is a sliding scale. So in certain circumstances, depending on where it's located, the survey responses, people wanted the Village number 1, outside the Village 2, Washington Hollow 3, what am I missing? Nabitsville 4. And so that sliding scale gets larger if you're not in an environmentally sensitive area and if you're in an area where people want hospitality. So it's not a hard and fast number. And I think, so I just wanted, because some people are saying it's that, and it's actually not. That's not what the report is. That's not at least how I interpret it, and that's not how, when Nan presented, and some people may have been here, some people may have not, but that's not what, well, there are people from the committee that are here. Margaret, do you want to speak to that? And or you just
said it correctly.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Okay, sorry, I interrupted the flow. I just want to make that point.
Hey, how are
We
you?
get to hear from you.
Yeah,
It's been weeks.
I know, you've been coming to jail.
I've been here a while. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominique Albano. I'm an attorney at Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna. And I represent Veronica Bulgari, Stefan Hamo, and Alon Werthimer. And my clients are adjacent property owners to the McDale Castle. And I know you've mentioned this isn't about the McDale Castle, but this kind of development is going to be impacted by your comprehensive plan review. So our clients thought it was important that we say our piece, and we've already submitted a letter to the board. I'm just here supplementing that letter. So in the past, we have strongly objected to the proposed development at the property, specifically the special purpose area overlay district proposed by Will Gadara. At that time, the project was not permitted by the town zoning code.
Excuse me.
Yes.
That would be a presentation, I would believe, it's my opinion, if the application came before zoning or planning. That's a type of comment that would be made at the public hearing.
I will be getting to how this is intertwined with hospitality very shortly.
Yes. So what we're looking for is your
Comment on this
opinion on
product.
what was found
Yes.
within this and how it should be or not be adopted into our comprehensive.
That's totally fine, and I will be getting to that shortly.
So try and avoid specific references.
Right, but this affects my client's property and how close they are to a
So can you
proposed
make that
development.
more global?
Yep, it could be more global. It's how hospitality will impact adjacent
Areas.
property owners, specifically the castle. So just a few points that we have to make about the comprehensive plan addendum, specifically related to inns. We mentioned in our letter that you have language that states that there's a 20-room density with the potential for it to be increased to 30, I believe is the cap. And specifically to make sure that an accessory restaurant or bar that is limited to an inn guest up to members of the public, to ensure that it's truly accessory and not self-sufficient restaurant or bar that is open to the public. That's one thing we would like you to consider, just the parameters of a restaurant and bar as an accessory use to a hospitality use. So additionally, event space, it's not clear from the definition whether it is principally permitted within the hospitality overlay district or an accessory use to an inn, hotel, motel, or a bed and breakfast. So this could also lead to large-scale commercial events and lots of traffic, water use, wastewater discharge, noise, and more in more typical sensitive areas. So it's your responsibility as the town board to review and amend definitions that could potentially be impacted by the hospitality addendum. And we commend you for your work so far and listening to the community and their wants and needs for going forward. And we look forward to working with you throughout this process.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
I would like to just say something to, I see a lot of faces here I don't know. And we talk about Madisonville, we talk about Washington Hollow, those two specific areas that we might allow hospitality. Madisonville is allowed to have hotel motel in our Hamlet mixed use zoning, except that our zoning restricts any development, any commercial development in Madisonville to 50% of the square foot of new residential development in a 2-year span. So there cannot be, at the way we have it stated now, there cannot be any growth of any commercial growth in Madisonville unless somebody starts building some houses up there. And we're not going to sell the town park, so I don't know where they're going to go.
Or unless the laws change.
Number two, excuse me. Okay, number 2 is Washington Hollow. Washington Hollow is zoned residential. Cottonwood Inn is in a residential area. So for anything to happen, the laws have to change in those two specific areas. I just wanted to bring that up to everybody so they understand that.
Any other comments? I think what Bobby is referring to also, Mr. Audie is referring to also, is these are recommendations, and by definition, that's the summary of the people who we asked to go out and ask questions and get data back. Even though we vote to attach this to our comprehensive plan, that means it's a living document, and a lot of dialogue will have to occur, and maybe things will have to change, like new laws or whatever, in order for some of the recommendations to be enacted. If we accept this, doesn't mean that every word is now law. That's not the effect of this. This is the recommendation of that 6-month committee working, getting input. I'm very interested in hearing about the 20-room capacity, as was a recommendation, and how economically that can have a very big impact not only on the investor, but also on the community need. So all of those things will be taken into consideration. I view this as a great vision into what the community wants, attached to a comprehensive plan that was developed and will be, again, fully looked at in 2025. But this is like a piece of that we now have some evidence that we can go back to and look at, dialogue about it, ask for opinion, perhaps do another study on a little minute piece of it, but that's what that is. So we needed to get public input from the public. Does the public want us to put that into the comprehensive plan, so now we can pull from that? Otherwise, we're dealing kind of out in space without really much guidance.
My name is Randy Reef. I'm a 20-year resident in Millbrook, built a home here 20 years ago. I'm a full-time resident now. I'm actually encouraged that most of the things I would have wanted to touch on have been touched on by most of the people who spoke. I think the initial exercise was a great start in terms of determining that there's relatively large support for some form of hospitality. I can tell you in my experience, it's desperately needed in some form. And there's been a lot of dialogue and a lot of subtext. And I also think it's incredibly important to separate the political and personal agenda from what we're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of that. We talk about it, we don't. I get phone calls overtly, covertly. The agenda to figure out what's the best for hospitality has to transcend that. It's really, really important. And while I think that the survey may be highly responsive as a percentage compared to an average polling, it's very small in terms of the will of the community. It's very small. It's positive for hospitality. But I also think the recommendations that the danger of adopting it as it is without further discussion, in my estimation, is the recommendation is based on the opinion of people polled. That's highly relevant with regard to sentiment, but probably irrelevant with regard to the peculiarities of running a business. It's 2010, 2030 is in there because people check 1020 sounds good without any real sense of what that means. And I don't know a lot about, I was here, but I wasn't a big part of the adoption of the comprehensive plan. I heard it was spoken of as the gospel through this process. So it obviously carries, it was a lot behind it. It carries a lot of weight. It's a great deal of gravitas behind it. The risk of adopting this as is without further discussion, without is that now it's going to carry more force and weight, and it's going to be that much longer in the process. And we're honing in on a pretty clear sense of what will work. And I do know Will, and I do know the Cottonwood, and there's aspects of all those that I'm enthusiastic to, a lot of it which is directly contrary to a lot of the misinformation that I received early on when I first had my reservations. I think both projects probably have tremendous merit, but beyond those, in general, rushing to adopt this as the first step was an excellent one. It was a critical first component, but it's step one. It's 15% of the community, and it's getting smart, and now we have more questions to ask. I'm not sure what the urgency is to make it a part of the comprehensive plan, which then is going to be the new big barrier to overcome, rather than continue this dialogue and get even smarter about what the community wants more specifically, what the two initiatives we're talking about or not, or others are, and what's best for the community, and set aside old biases and agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
There's lots of people on Zoom that would like to speak.
Mine's
We'll
just a
get to it.
question. Mine is just a question to the board, because I don't know everything that's in the plan.
is there, I've been a resident since 45 years, and I wonder, is there any, where is this money coming from? If we do, is there transparency as to who the investors are?
Investors for what?
In any
project.
big project we plan.
Well, I mean, I can speak for myself as a town board member. I think that transparency is important. I think
That's
if we're
what I
going to
mean.
partner with any developer, we want to understand that component.
That's what I ask, is for transparency.
Any person that has an idea of what they would like to do within the town of Washington has to go before either the planning or zoning board to submit their idea, their plan to that board. That board then assesses where it stays, whether it stays in zoning or moves into planning. Through that entire process, all of the question you just asked gets fleshed out on who is projecting the, bringing forward the projection, the project, who's funding the project, what is the magnitude of the project, whether it's somebody putting in a swimming pool or somebody looking to do in the zones where things are permitted, perhaps an inn, perhaps a bread and breakfast, perhaps a stable.
Good.
So that's how that transparency occurs. They have to go through that process.
Good, I'm happy to hear that.
Ma'am, can we get your name and your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ingrid Von Wers, 57 Edgewood.
Thank you.
Someone
I was going to say, there's someone.
Someone
Oh,
else.
Let's finish the room and then go to Zoom.
And then we'll move to online or Zoom.
I'm an interloper. I live in the town of Unionville. But I've been very, I'm Mary Muller, and I live on 140 Burbank Village Road. I've been here for 40 years. I consider Millbrook my home. And the only thing that I have to say is, would it be possible to have a definition of a hotel room added to the comprehensive plan? I think that there could be a big difference between an inn and a cottage. What's a cottage? What's a key? And I think that that all needs to be spelled out. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Needs to go that way more. Can you move it over?
Yeah, I was gonna say, turn it a little bit. It still works, it should be better.
Is there,
What, let's finish in the room first.
well, is there any,
Is the room finished? Is there anyone else in the room? Howard?
I've been here for a long time. Am I far enough away?
No, starting to feedback for some reason.
Mike, you can just speak up.
You should be able to.
Sure.
Okay, speak nice and loudly, please.
I've been here since 1968.
Your name.
That's not going to work.
Alan Schuman, Maple Hill Drive, Millbrook. I've been here since 1968. I've gone through the 72 comprehensive plans.
Well, then the people came here.
Howard, you're really going to have to speak up. Move forward.
These are potent and powerful.
So where am I speaking?
This is good. Howard, you're fine. You're good.
Go ahead. All right, back up. I've been here since 1968. I've been through all the comprehensive plans. I was involved with the 86. I was involved with the 2015 on the land use committee. With four of us, I wrote most of the land use regulations. And the theme has always been the same. Most of the people who live here want a rural community that is aesthetically nice to live in. They do not want a commercial community. They want commercial use in the village only, and that was the theme through all of the plans. Now, there was some leftover commercial uses, and they're still here, because once you put commercial use in, it's very hard to get it out. It just stays there in some form or another. And so when we did the 2015 plan, we were very careful to limit what could go into the town, so we wouldn't get more commercial use in the town. Now, there is something in here It's a recommendation. It's a small recommendation. And by the way, when you start these things, the way the process works, it takes a long time. You have to go through all of these steps, and then you have to write the code, and then you have to debate the code, and then you have to go on to the next one. So it's a long process. It's not just, oh, here it is, adopt it. This might be a good starting point. And the starting point that I want to call your attention to, I'm not going to speak on all of them. It says it is recommended that the town implement, they're talking about these overlay districts, that the town implement these overlays in a phased approach with an overlay first in Washington Hollow, followed by initiating coordination with the Village of Millbrook. See recommendation 1B, to identify the second area if desired. So in other words, this is a safety valve. Don't rush into this, because once you do, you're not going to get out of it very easily. So this is from the planners who put the plan together that you guys have. And they're saying start very slowly with hospitality, because once you go into it, you can't get out of it again. So aside from all of the other things that you're going to have to go through, the 2015 plan, by the way, took 8 years to do. So this is a very big job, and what you have is something at least almost as big as that plan by itself. So it's going to take a long time to actually get it done. So what I'm recommending is that you start very small. You keep in mind what people wanted. They wanted to have a rural community. They wanted to have aesthetics in the community. They did not want a commercial community. They wanted commercial to be limited to the Village of Millbrook. It says so right in the other in the 2015 comprehensive plan. So those are the 2 points I'd like to make at the moment. There'll be more afterwards.
We expect it, Howard.
So the point was to first follow the recommendation from the planners to limit anything that you do with hospitality first to the Cottonwood and area. That works. And the second thing is to keep in mind that most people like this rural town the way you don't want to see it commercialized, like Pleasant Valley, for example. Over the years has turned into something quite different than when I first came up here. So that's my 2 recommendations. Be careful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Okay. Anyone else in the building?
Anyone else in the room?
Yes, well, sure. Hey, Lisa, there's some seats up there if you want. Yeah, come on up there.
My name is Will Gadara.
Come on.
No,
Oh, come on.
They're very comfortable.
Yeah, get a comfortable chair there.
My name is Will Gadara. I have the option for Migdal right now, 3874 US 44. I live in Kingston, 400 New Salem Road. I know this meeting is not about Migdal, but I think ostensibly Migdal is what prompted this survey to begin with. And I just wanted to say a few things. I won't take time. First, it's clear to me that 18 months ago when I initially proposed this project, I did a lot wrong. I wish I could go back and change the way I initially submitted this plan. I can't. But I hadn't yet taken enough time to get to know enough people in Millbrook to understand what would serve the community as best as possible. And for that, I just want to say I'm sorry. Can't go back and redo it, but I can apologize it for now. And I just hope that my missteps then don't prevent a thoughtful conversation from happening now. Right after I initially proposed that, and it was clear the backlash it was receiving, I immediately withdrew my proposal so I could take the last year plus getting to know a lot of people here, listening and learning. And I've learned a lot from a lot of people about what not to do with that project and what to do. And I now count a lot of the people that I met with to be really good friends. I've made a ton of changes, and I won't take up time here going through them, but I think the biggest ones are I've shrunk the footprint dramatically. I've removed every single house that was planned to be on that property, except for one for me and my family, because I want to live there, run that, and be a part of this community. I've gone from 70 rooms down to 45. as far as this survey is concerned, again, I think it happened because of my initial proposal. And I would just love that the process happens at a pace where I can continue doing what I've been doing and invite everyone, and I mean sincerely, everyone that wants to come and see Migdale, meet me, understand what I'm trying to do there.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but if I allow you to keep going in this direction.
I'll be
Will
done.
you please talk more to your
Yes.
opinion on the
Absolutely.
plan?
I think that
Because you'll have an opportunity later on to do what
Yes.
you'd like to do.
I think the number of rooms that it is suggesting and the sliding scale is a little bit new to me, but how I read it, how we understood it, was that it kind of capped out at 30. I think that given the economic reality, that is not enough to sustain the kind of investment that would produce the kind of hotel that Millbrook would be proud of. I think it's just a bit too limiting at this stage. And the reason why I'm so inclined to invite everyone, the people that will always hate me, because I know there are many, and those that are still open to seeing that there can be elegant solutions to a problem and an opportunity that exists right now in Millbrook, to do this thoughtfully and well, to come. Go online, Migdale Hospitality, there's a button, you can sign up. Everyone's welcome. I'd love to show you my plan, have you ask any questions, offer any feedback. And I'm just asking to slow the process down enough such that I can present the plan that I spent the last year working on, because I've toured hundreds of people through there, and the majority of the people, once they see it, they understand it, and they become much more supportive. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will.
Anyone else in the room? I want to speak,
Yeah. So I'm Alan Rapplier. I live in the village. I've lived there for decades. I used to live in Mabbittsville. I also represent Will. And when I met him, the first thing I said was, what were you thinking with that first project? Because it was bound to create a lot of unhappy people. And I think, I don't think Will was aware of that. I think probably everybody in the room would have been aware of that. I have 3 children. They all drank village water. The boys are both 6'5", so the water's okay. Pat Erickson was here. She made a comment about the aquifer, and I've known Pat a long time. The village aquifer, some of the board members remember, there was a spill at the gas station about maybe 25 years ago. There were pumps there to protect the village aquifer, and it did a good job of that. Folks may not know that. Secondly, there was a problem in the town pool many years ago, and I was on the town board at the time, where there was a substance in the pool that was somewhat dangerous, and it all cleared up. And my point in bringing these 2 things up is, I think facts are important. Hyperbole and exaggeration are not. And we should make decisions in this community based on facts. The facts are the aquifer overlay is Migdale's outside it. So where hotels and motels are allowable in our town right now, but for this formula in Mabbittsville that Bob pointed out, that's actually a more sensitive area in the aquifer. What's that, Mike?
We're just talking about keeping it to the report and not.
Well, forgive me, I'm going to get to that.
This
report,
isn't
but the
fair.
reason I'm
You're
pointing it
allowing
out-
Will Guidera's lawyer to speak over residents who live in this town simply because
Absolutely.
we dialed in by Zoom. And you know what? You never said Zoom was some sort of second-class citizen, and this is really an embarrassment. You wouldn't even let the Bulgarian
For who?
lawyer speak, and yet you're letting this man speak. He represents someone who doesn't even live in this town.
Well, I do, ma'am. I don't know who you are, but I do
You
live
may
here.
live in
And
this
I've lived here
town,
for-
but you're speaking as the lawyer for Will Guidera, and he does not live in this town.
We will get to the Zoom in a second. I think just
Can we
keep it
just
to
get
the
to the-
report.
Sure.
The opinion on the
So-
comprehensive plan.
Of course,
Yeah.
but I was trying to point out that there's misinformation.
In the
Okay.
comprehensive plan. The
In
survey.
in the amendment, Mike, yes. One of the things that no one has talked about is when the folks that worked on the committee worked really hard, I know that. But I know from a few other business owners, including me, who own several properties in our village, and therefore I'm interested independently of Will, is there was not a consultant about hospitality and the viability of hospitality and what room number you need. So, in other words, it's premised upon the survey where there was a 13% response rate, not 15. And the sort of the most important question was, what is economically viable? So I think the debate is great. It's at times hostile. It doesn't need to be that way. But to adopt a amendment to the comp plan that becomes an appendage, which Jeff certainly knows, that then impacts what you can change in your zoning law. So your zoning law cannot be inconsistent with your comp plan. So we're considering a comp plan amendment, which I may have misread it. I thought it would have made it extremely difficult for anyone to have more than 20 rooms, whether it be the Cottonwood or anybody else. And to adopt that, when you adopt it, it's gospel. And you've adopted something based upon a 13% response rate survey, where the fundamental question of, look, there isn't a question that the survey said, we want hospitality. And then there were parameters, for sure. Nobody wants 50 rooms. Nobody wants Will's last project. However, to say we're going to adopt this without talking to someone who runs hospitality and says, can this make it? If it can't, then what's the point? So I think it's a little less innocent than simply adopting this and thinking, well, we can work on it later. That's not what's going to happen. If you adopt it as part of your comp plan, I view the survey as part of the process, not the be-all and end-all. Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Well done.
Okay.
Okay.
I will ask them to unmute.
Whoever,
I will ask them.
probably raise their hands.
Yeah, they have their hands raised. I think it's Daryl that's Darren.
Just give us a moment.
We're going to move on to the people who are on Zoom that wish to speak, and there will be some direction in a moment on how we go about doing that, particularly to avoid any talk over that will occur from the Zoom people on Zoom. Mary, just explain the process for us, please.
Yeah, we have somebody who's working the Zoom computer. So she will alert people when it is their turn to speak. We're asking everyone else to please remain muted and give people the chance to speak in the order that they're selected. Thank you. Darren?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Name and address?
Okay, great. My name is Darren Hinault. I live at 43 Crescent Road in Mabbittsville. I own the property across the street from my house, which goes right up to Mabbittsville Market and is actually part of the aquifer. So I feel like I can speak pretty knowledgeably about that. To clear things up, I am a friend of the town of Washington. My husband is a friend of the town of Washington. The money is all donations from the people who are friends of the town of Washington. There is nothing nefarious about the friends of the town of Washington. They're concerned property owners and reasonable people. There's no dark cloud happening in the town of Washington. The last time I spoke at one of these meetings, I was very quickly labeled anti-development, and it affected my business, which I own in Armenia. I want to say I am absolutely not anti-development. When it is correct, when it is appropriate, it is a fantastic thing. The development that was done in Armenia was done in a town that was depressed, was done in a town that regularly ran in the red, and was done in an area with very depressed land values. That is not the case in Millbrook. We do not run in the red, we run in the black. We have plenty of money, and the area that I live in, where some development is considered, is quite well off, very large properties, and it would be inappropriate to put a development in this area. Now, I'm terrified of mentioning Migdale. However, we're all pretending this isn't about Migdale. Two people just got up, including Will Guidara, and gave pretty substantial presentations about Migdale. So I think it's absurd that they were allowed to speak and everybody else is being cautioned not to. And I think it's absurd that we're pretending this is not about Migdale. You know, at the last meeting, the vast majority of people who were asked about development, specifically about Migdale, said no. Over 100 people spoke. 3 people said yes. The rest said no. This survey, we can say that we don't like what this survey says and so diminish the value of this survey. That would not be appropriate, nor would it be logical. The fact is, percentage-wise, the number of people who took part in this survey is astronomical on a national level for any other survey that's ever taken place. So to pretend that it's irrelevant is frankly absurd. The majority of people do not want the comprehensive plan changed. They do not want large development. The number is irrelevant. It's development, period, in an appropriate or a non-appropriate area. I could go on and on and on. I have lots more to say, but I'll leave it at that. The comprehensive plan should stand. The survey indicates that it should stand. If you read the comprehensive plan, in fact, there aren't a million comments saying this is vague, that's vague. Nothing's vague. It's very clear. It took a long time. It required an enormous amount of thought and research, and it states what people feel, believe, and it should be followed. And this survey is a fantastic addition, which only confirms what the comprehensive plan states. So there you go. Have at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy can go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Someone referred, I think they meant me, to people being upset. And it's interesting, I've participated in almost every... Hello?
Excuse me, Mayor, can we have your name and address, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. She referred to me as Tracy, so I thought she knew who I was. I'm Tracy Kimmel Florak, and I live at 677 Deep Hollow Road. Thank you for listening to me. I was upset. I am upset, but you know, I've been participating in this process the entire time, and I've remained calm the entire time. And it was upsetting for me just now to have someone on the town board say at the beginning of the meeting that the meeting wasn't about Migdale, to then make a point of saying that only people in the room would be allowed to speak first, and then the people on Zoom, as though somehow or another there was a priority. And then clearly to allow Will Guidara to speak, and then to have his lawyer speak on his behalf, as though he had some sort of expert authority to be talking about the aquifer or the plants or anything else, and not just as another person in the town. It was upsetting for me. So I apologize for bursting in. I did not mean to be rude. My upset got the better of me. I wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, attacking the results and the report that was put together after, it wasn't just a survey, it was town halls, it was surveys, it was town meetings. And then we hired a consultant. We had a comprehensive planning committee that spent ages of time that worked together with that consultant to put together the report. So that report represents a lot more than just a survey. To attack that because we're unhappy with the result is base and low, I believe. We got very good survey results, but a lot of other work was done as well. And I don't think anybody would attack the integrity of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee or the experts that they hired. And so I would urge the board to pay attention to and and to honor the hard work of all the people of the town that have participated. It would be nice in a democracy if we could have 100% participation. But that is not, in fact, the system that we live in. And we had very solid participation here. I wish we had better, but honestly, I don't think it would have changed things. When you talk to people, when you go to the town halls, when you listen to these meetings, it's been pretty consistent with those results. Second, to go to the specific results, nobody said that we didn't want to have hospitality in this town and in this village. What we said was we wanted to keep our rural spaces and our residential rural spaces, residential and rural, and that we didn't want to put commercial places within those. Everybody universally, rich, poor, rural, village, hilltoppers, what have you, kind of universally, the vast majority preferred to see the development go in places where it would make most sense and keep the character of the town as it is, i.e. put a hotel in the village. I think people have talked about Washington Hollow, and maybe they've picked on it a little bit for more development because, quite frankly, it's already more developed. And it doesn't, when you drive down 44 from the Taconic into the village and you pass through where the Cottonwood is, there are already many commercial establishments. Thus, allowing that Cottonwood to thrive would not change the character of the area where it already sits. And that's the reason why I think people are very kindly disposed toward it, as am I. Because again, they don't want to change the rural areas to be commercial, but they're fine to have a commercial area or what appears to be a commercial area, even if it may not legally be so. They could be happy to see it rezoned as that. My next point is I did want to say, like Darren, that I'm a friend of the town of Washington. It's nothing more than a list of your neighbors. And maybe we don't agree with everyone on everything, but we all agree that we love Millbrook. And I gave money. I'm not one of the billionaires that live in this town, but I gave a lot of money because I really believed in this cause. And I really felt that now was the time to stand up for our town when we were worried it was going to be taken advantage of by an outside investor. The last thing I wanted to say was I did want to address this outside investor idea. The lawyer for Will Guidara said that this report didn't take into account how to make a hotel profitable, and as though that was somehow or another our town's responsibility to figure out and rezone to make a commercial establishment be able to be economically profitable for outside investors in one of our rural residential areas. That is not the point of a town comprehensive plan. It's not the point of why everyone works so hard. It was to figure out what the people of this town wanted and what had as our vision for the town, and then to see how we could best honor it. And nobody wanted a commercial establishment to be sitting in a rural area. So if the answer is it's not profitable to open a 20-room hotel in Migdale Castle, then perhaps we should not open a hotel in Migdale Castle. The answer can't be that we should sacrifice the rural area in the Mabbittsville and surrounding areas to commercial development simply to create the possibility for profitability for, again, an outside investor. And very last thing, someone on the board said that we would get to transparency if a project was ever before us. A project was before us, and they refused to reveal who their investors were. Before they withdrew that application, they were in front of the board, they answered questions, and they repeatedly refused to tell us who their investors were. They continue to do so. And we allowed them to come on this meeting and shill for their project that the board says isn't before them. We allowed them to come on this Zoom and in this meeting and invite people to visit it. He referred to it as his project. He referred to the changes he'd made to it. So clearly there is a project at hand here. And I agree with Darren that we ought to just have an honest conversation about what we're talking about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan?
Hi. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Great. First, thank you, board. Thank you, rec committee. The rec emails are the favorite in my inbox, so thank you. I'm getting to that. I'm Susan Cernak. I live on Route 44 right now, right next to the town park in Mabbittsville in the commercial zone. So I have been pretty interested in knowing what's going on with the Migdale property. I'm also from a small town in rural New Hampshire, and I have family members who'd love to spend more time here and don't have options. So I'm also pretty interested in what's happening with the Cottonwood plan and property. I was among those 600 who took the survey and reviewed the comprehensive plan. And as a voter in that survey, I wanted to raise 2 key points around some of what seem to be some of the stickier points in the comprehensive plan that's being discussed and surfaced here. First, the number of rooms. I will definitely admit that I'm pretty sure I voted for 28 rooms, mostly out of fear of a Best Western coming directly across the street from me. But I think hearing more about the business sustainability needs, hearing more from various townspeople in conversations, and certainly here, as well as reviewing notes and comments from others, hearing more about this much scaled down Migdale plan in particular has made me a lot more comfortable with and encouraging of, a plan that's 40 to 45 rooms within certain parameters. And that brings me to point number 2, which is really a key point of that survey and the comprehensive plan was really about the look and feel of that hospitality unit. Everyone, it seemed to be extremely aligned on wanting to bring something into our incredible community that fits within the landscape, that feels like it's part of our community and not other and not an eyesore. And the scale of that would ultimately have to be right. And again, everyone seemed to agree on that. Without going into those plans, it seems like both Cottonwood and the Migdale plans seem to fit that ideal, or they could. We'd all have to learn more. And really all of that to say that the comprehensive plan, can't be defined in a way that's overly limiting. We can't say it's 20 rooms, yay and nay, and that's it. I think the survey, which is so beautifully done, and a vote like this can be a wonderful pulse check, a wonderful conversation to help guide this important review and important conversation. But really at the end of the day, each individual proposal has to be reviewed case by case. And those kind of individual merits, challenges, pros, cons, and really the opportunity for community has to be reviewed on case by case, as opposed to kind of a really overly limiting comprehensive plan. Anyway, thank you, and back to whoever's next on Zoom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we continue, I'm hearing that you're able to hear my typing, so I apologize for that. I have one microphone turned off. I'm going to turn the other one off. We will keep one microphone on the table. Can you tell me if that's better? I can't stop typing. It's the only way I can take 2 minutes. Okay.
John Penn is next up.
John, you're next up.
Good evening, all. And I'll note first, Mary Alex, I actually loved hearing you bang away on the keys, so I'll start with that. So I do want to start by saying I really appreciated the comment.
Name and address, please.
Oh, sorry, my name is John.
John, could you give me?
My name is John Penn. I live at 3657 Route 44. I've been involved in a lot of these meetings. I want to start by saying I really appreciated all the comments from Darren Hanout specifically and Tracy, because I think they called out a number of things that I wanted to mention. I do want to point out a couple things that have come up in this meeting that I found particularly striking. One, a number of folks commenting on the response rate from our survey. I want to be clear, our survey wasn't sent out to a random sampling of folks within our community. It was sent out to everyone. The number of people who responded were the people who decided it was important to them to finish that survey and make their views known. Diminishing that by saying it's a small response rate for our overall population is ridiculous. And I want to be clear that this isn't just a random sampling. Second, I want to second some or note again something that's been mentioned by every caller, or every Zoom commenter so far. Early in this meeting, you commented that this was not about Migdale and interrupted an attorney for residents of properties immediately adjacent to the Migdale property no less than 5 times during their comments, but then allowed Will Guidara to speak repeatedly about Migdale for more than 5 minutes, and then allowed his attorney to make statements. So when you talk about transparency and how this isn't about Migdale and how we should trust you to make these decisions, it becomes very hard as a resident when I witness these things to trust you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Andrew?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm away for work. My name is Andrew Heaney. I'm a resident of 2 Bonnecue Road.
Andrew, could you give your name? Andrew, could you give your name and address, please?
I thought I just did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I have been a resident of the town of Washington in Millbrook for 10 years. My wife Leslie and I raised our 3 children in Millbrook. I ran for political office in the district, was a member of the fire department for a number of years as an interior firefighter, a soccer coach in the town rec, and one of the founders of FOTAU. And I want to join those who have thanked the board for their outstanding work in first commissioning the study, second in selecting a group of people of unassailable character who are really nothing short of pillars of our community, people like Timmy Bonnecue, Margaret Schneibel, Tim Mayhew, just to name a few. And these are really, really great people who really love Millbrook and have a big stake in it. And I think they took their charge very seriously. They also very seriously hired one of the absolute best consultants in this area in terms of planning for a town. And we have been blessed now with this report, which is unbelievable for a town of our size to have the resources we have now. If you look at the report, there's incredible detail on our view sheds, our water, our animals, what needs to be protected. And I will remain eternally grateful to them for that gift. And the thing I also love about it is that so many people participated. We had a participation of almost 700 people, which, if you look at statistics, I'm not an expert on statistics, but there's something known as a statistically significant sample, which is what they use in politics to do polls, very accurate. We are so far beyond the statistically significant sample that it's not even a question. And what does this tell us? It tells us loud and clear that the people of the town of Washington want to keep the rural quality of their community. They want to keep development inside the village or near the village. What's also kind of cool is it also told us that they do want more hospitality. We all agreed on that. But they want the hospitality to be low key. They don't want big hotels. They don't want Best Westerns or anything like that. They also, very importantly, do not want these hotels to be in what's called the RR10, which is our residential area. Any honest person who reads this report, the report that is derived from the will of the people, no honest person could ever think that Migdale has any future in the town of Washington. And that is precisely why the deck has been stacked at this meeting today with Will Guidara and all of his supporters. And the reason that they are fighting the idea of the adoption of this plan is because it goes against their plans. I'm old enough to remember when Will told us that his plan didn't work without the houses. I believe he told me that directly. So what's changed, Will? Why is it now that you're able to do a small inn and now you need 40 rooms or 45 rooms, or you're going to do it you're going to try to sneak it in as a club, or you're going to try to get the board to change the lines in Migdale? It's all this sneaking around. And frankly, that is exactly why FOTAU was formed. You didn't just withdraw your application, Will. We forced you to withdraw it. We hired lawyers. We fought you for months until you finally withdrew it. And just this past week, you launched a slick new website, which, if you fact check it, there are so many lies inside that website, it really boggles the mind. And so I just want to say that, I know we're not supposed to talk about Migdale, but again, Will is in the room. And I just want to say to you, Will, that I had the opportunity when we felt our voice wasn't being heard in Millbrook by the town board we exercised our democratic franchise and we went out and we tried to run for town board. We were partially successful. But in that process, I probably knocked on 500 doors. And I can tell you right now that the people do not want this project. It's not that we hate you. You're a very talented person. I'm sure you're a great guy. We welcome you to come to Millbrook to work within our laws and what the people want, to find a property that's legal and live all of your fondest dreams. But Miguel, my friend, we're not buying it. Thank you.
Let me be very clear to you. This meeting was not stacked with McDale supporters.
I'm not, Gary, can I just say that I'm not saying that the town board has done anything inappropriate. I'm saying that Will did what was best for him and his project and brought a lot of his friends to come to the meeting, which is his right to do, of course.
Okay.
Lee Cornell?
Just a moment. Hold on.
Just a minute.
I'm Lee Cornell.
Lee, could you just wait a second? We got to catch up. Okay, now go ahead.
I'm Lee Cornell, and I live at 620 Stanford Road. And I've lived in Millbrook for 35 years. And I'm very happy to live in a town and in a community, in a country where everyone can speak their mind, whether they're for Will Guidara or against him, or for the Cottonwood or against it. And as far as I know, that this is still a town of freedom where everyone can speak no matter which side they're on. And I don't think any deck is stacked either way. This is a chance for us as a community to speak however we want to speak. I participated in the survey that the consultant held, and it was a discussion. It was opinions. We gave our ideas, we gave our thoughts, and we speculated on what we would want, but none of us were professionals. And that's basically what I remember from this Zoom consultation questionnaire. It was basically just brainstorming about what we'd like to see. So like one of the things that were brought up was like maybe the 20 rooms or 30 rooms or whatever. But basically, we're not professionals to know what's going to make something viable for professional. And I felt like that was kind of how it was left. It was kind of our broad idea of what we'd like to see in our community, for our rural community, to keep the spirit of Millbrook. And it wasn't my feeling that anything that came out of that survey was going to be etched in stone, that was going to be made law. And it's really important for us to have some type of thoughtful process for what our hospitality is, because we all agreed that we really needed to have more hospitality and good hospitality, because we're inundated with Airbnbs. And the Airbnbs in our community are really what's destroying the rural character, where you have Airbnbs in the village, in the town, next to people who have homes. So think of something very broadly and holistically that's going to work for our community. And it's not for, I felt, our group to say how large, how big, how many rooms, and what it was supposed to look like, but that there was definitely a need. And I hope that everybody takes that into consideration, that there obviously is a need. And whether you live on Deep Hollow Road or you live on Stanford Road or wherever, we all have house guests. And where do you put them? I mean, my family ends up staying in Airbnbs because there's no place to stay yet. So, you know, the Airbnbs contribute nothing to our town, not to the taxes. Let's have something that's really going to bring something to our community, whether it's hotel, whether it's an inn, whether it's restaurant facilities, and really become part of our community and add to our community. And that once they stay in our community, they broaden and they go to other restaurants or go to our farmers market or whatever. They can become part of our community. So I say, let's embrace hospitality. This is our future. We're not looking backwards. We're looking forward into what our community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Sullivan.
Excuse me. Yes, it's Pat Sullivan on 4291 Route 44. I've been here for about 20 years, or probably more, 25 years. And I agree with what a majority of people are saying, like Tracy and Darren and Andrew is, I voted for the 20 because it asked for a parameter, but there were a lot of comments that I think that were written in, and I think the woman in the front table, it looks like your shirt's pink. I'm not sure if it is or not. Said that it's scalable, and I think that was the input that that I had, is that, it should be small. However, if it's in the appropriate location, then if it's a bit bigger on case-by-case basis, it should be considered and possibly approved if it is the correct thing to do. I do agree 100% it should not be in our rural areas like was proposed by Migdale. We have nothing against Will or his investors personally, but we have an issue with his business plan because that is not an appropriate place for this business. It should be out by the Cottonwood. It should be in other areas that are more developed and not part of our rural environment, because that is why I think we all moved here and why we all stay here, is because Millbrook is the way it is, and that's the way we love it, and we want it to remain that way and invest in keeping it that way. So yes, we should consider hospitality. I think we all said that in the survey. However, it should be appropriate and in the appropriate locations, not in our rural environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Hi, how are you? My name is Jesse Darris. I live at 692 Bengal Road in the town of Washington. First, I want to thank the board for all of the work to get us to this point. I think it's incredibly important and valuable. To start, because I think there's been a lack of clarity in this, and just as somebody who literally grew up studying polling at school, a survey is not a poll. A poll, when you randomly call 1,000 people, is a representative sample of a population. This survey was opt-in. It was like a giant Yelp review. It wasn't mandatory. So the folks on both sides with strong opinions, including me, participated. The rest of the town didn't. And most likely, none of them even knew it was happening. All of us have busy lives, and the people who were checked into this process are the ones who responded. It's not the fault of anybody else, obviously, but it is worth pointing out. Interestingly, it wasn't the only survey done this past year in the town that served as a referendum on hospitality in Millbrook, and specifically on Migdale and the Cottonwood and all these other things that are happening. In that survey, which was the last town board election, Fotow was defeated roundly. They ran a sophisticated political campaign that included full bleed mailers and a television commercial that was wildly misleading. It said we were going to bring a prison to the, it was crazy. And spent what I assume was hundreds of thousands of dollars in a race where candidates typically spend nearly nothing. And they lost. And I don't believe that means the town disagrees with everything Fotow says, but I certainly think it disagrees with at least enough of it to vote against it. Our town needs hospitality. I think we all agree with that.
Jesse, that's just
was part of that.
Yeah, Jesse, that's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Andrew, I think
Our town,
I
listened to you speak. I'm just
and if we want to talk about that, that can be another time. But this is where
just going to try to finish what I was saying. Our town needs hospitality, and it already embraces hospitality. So I live on Bengal Road, just behind the Millbrook Winery. Each weekend during the summer, there are hundreds of cars that drive up to that winery each day. Hundreds. The patrons are loud into the night, and the winery hosts regular concerts with amplified music. This is the absolute definition of commercial activity in a rural setting. And everybody in this room, including me, is okay with it. I love having the winery in the town. Everybody loves having the winery in the town. The difference between the hospitality that we're talking about now and that hospitality is that it's new, and new is scary, right? And I get that. But the idea that we don't embrace hospitality and commercial activity in rural settings is false. I stand here in support of both the Cottonwood and Migdale. I know everybody involved. I'm very close friends with Will and his entire family. They're great people. And I've been saddened and embarrassed by the politicization of this process. It's been destructive to the community. Sending law partners to threaten town boards is destructive to the community. We all need to stop and take a breath and allow the board to do that as well. So all I'm saying is let's let the process run its course. Everybody has spoken out about the idea that 20 is too small, 20 is too big, this, that, or the other thing. I think the biggest thing that happened in this survey, to the extent we're looking at takeaways, is that people said they wanted hospitality and said they wanted hotels. To expect that they also understand what is or is not economically viable when none of them have opened a hotel and almost none of them have ever worked in hospitality doesn't make any sense. Let's stop. Let's take a breath. Let's look at each of these proposals in its totality and let the town board take its course as it goes.
Thank you. Eliza?
Hi, I'm Eliza Dyson. I live at 524 Smithfield Valley Road in Amenia. And as previously mentioned, one of my family's business is the Millbrook Winery right across from Jesse Darris that he was just talking about. I just kind of wanted to bring everything kind of back around to why we're here tonight, which is that we have spent a sizable part of the last 2 years, and more specifically the last year, reaching out to everyone as a community and letting everyone speak on the subject of, do we want hospitality? And the town board really did the appropriate thing here, and realizing that we had a big project in front of us and there was no real way of kind of dealing with it. So we did an excellent process, and we tried to get every single person to weigh in. I know, as I am also part of FOTAO, and I sent probably over 700 emails trying to make sure almost like their vote was heard, like speak up for what you believe in. Now is the time. Say what you want to about the community. And I couldn't agree more with what Lee Cornell said, that everyone should have the right to weigh in. This is such an important town to all of us. It is a sanctuary, and everyone should have said how they felt. Now that we are a year in and the comprehensive report has come out, it is excellent. It has asked over 50 questions. The amount of people who weighed in, I bet if you asked all the other local towns, they would have no even comparable points of reference for anything they've ever asked the community to weigh in and be a part of. And so I think it's such an excellent thing that the town board is going to amend this report, because you can't even take another step forward until you've taken this report that we spent a year putting together and adding it into the comprehensive plan, because you sought to find out what the people want, and this is what the people want. And so it's important to then say, okay, here's what we did, and here's what the people want. And now we can move forward and look at what hospitality looks like in our town. Everybody loved the idea of Washington Hollow. Everybody loved the idea of the Village or just outside of the Village. So now let's look at what that looks like. But you can't ignore all the people who have spent such a tireless amount of time looking at this and speaking about this and trying to get their neighbors to talk about this. It is really important. And I think every one of you on the town board has done such an excellent job really saying, like, we want to hear what the people think. And I thank you for doing that. But now I really, really applaud you for incorporating this into the comprehensive plan, because that's the next step in being able to move forward with anything. And unless we add this to the comprehensive plan, there would be no way to even continue with any sort of plan. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? Okay. Yeah. Anyone else on the Zoom call that would like to add their comments?
Yeah, I would like to speak.
Excuse me?
Oh, is that Fernando? Not
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fernando.
Fernando, go ahead, identify yourself and your address, please.
Fernando identifies himself as Fernando Nottebohm, who lives at 392 North Tower Hill Road. And as the previous speakers, I want to thank the board for the great work they have done. Now, I realize that some of you are being very focused on a business deal, and others are being focused on their ideals, and they feel a little bit uneasy in that they feel we have to make concessions to the business people. I am a conservationist. I came to Millbrook because I love the rural environment. I've lived in it for the last 50 years. I don't want it to change. I think people that want to see great hotels in their neighborhood might find places where those great hotels are. There is no need to ruin our own community just to satisfy the financial needs of investors. I do not want to see Millbrook turned into Disneyland. I don't think we have a problem with Millbrook as it is. We're not a poor community. There is full employment. There is more than full employment. If you try to get an electrician or a plumber or a painter or anyone to get a job for you, you'll have a very hard time. So we don't suffer from that either. We are a fairly successful community as it is. And those that want to change us for their own personal profit are doing it for themselves, not for us. The idea that they come and do something for us is preposterous. And that's all I have to say.
Just interrupt. I just went outside. It's slippery, so beware of that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary? Mary?
Yes.
This is Betsy. I'd like to ask a process question. I'm not sure how to raise my hand electronically. May I?
All right, Betsy, just one moment. I want to go out and put salt down.
Oh, I can do that. No, we'll do that.
All right.
I can do that.
All right.
I want Mary to solve.
Betsy, do you want to wait for the board members to come back, or do you want to begin?
I actually, my question is probably more for Jeff Battistoni than anyone. I am wondering how much force of law would adding this comprehensive plan recommendations to the comprehensive plan, how much force of law would that carry as an addendum? And I think Jeff may know, and maybe it was spoken of early, but I haven't heard a clear answer, I don't think.
Well, the definition is, Betsy, I think it's a comprehensive plan, so it's a view of what the people would like to see. It's not a law, by no means.
Well, it is possible, I suppose.
Betsy, we asked Nan that question. Remember when we were trying to gauge about incorporating it into the report? And it's a guide. It's a guide for us, and it has to do with now our laws and our code can't go outside of the sentiment of the document. But
does that include? That would include then this new result as a guide.
Yeah.
But
as a guide,
yeah. I suppose there could probably be litigation by someone who's really diligent or impossibly wanting their way.
I don't know about that because Nan's very experienced, Betsy, in doing these, and so that's why when we went through. Remember, I don't know if you went to the firehouse, but they specifically had those questions about size. So if there's a process that they follow, and I would assume, I mean, I don't know this for a fact. We should have maybe had Nan here. I was just thinking about that, but that because that's how she formatted it, and she's really an expert in doing these consulting on this particular issue from the municipalities, that there would be she have some kind of understanding of precedent there.
Yes, I'm sure she does. sorry. I just wonder, I'm not sure that people understand quite. I don't see quite the the alignment between amending our comprehensive plan to include this report and the people who are pro and con certain areas of development. So it's just a process question. And I think you've answered it as well as it can be answered. It's probably guideline, the service guidelines. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you, Betsy. Margaret, is that all?
That was all that had their hand.
Anyone else here in the room?
Yes, I think I'll say something. Yeah, I was hiding. Steve Curley.
Steve, you can just talk up.
Sure, Steve Curley, 343 North Tower Hill Road. You know, what I'm hearing is the town has, gone through all the effort of, doing this addendum to, the master plan, and we're debating whether we're going to do anything with it. That is really ridiculous, because you spent the money, you said to us in the town that, we're going to do this, this is going to give us a guideline, a direction to go. And now I hear, people on both sides, saying, oh, it's not really what it says. It is really what it says. Well, it is what it is, and we spent the money. We apply it to the plan that we already have, and we go forward. We don't say, well, we spent $10,000, we're just going to throw it in the garbage and we'll just make it up as we go along. That's not what the paper says.
That's why we're here, though.
Yeah.
What? But I'm just saying, you have all these people, Will and everybody else, they're discounting what the people want. I mean, I've lived here in Millbrook for 22 years, but been up here since the 60s. It's a democratic process. It's not, for the investor, how much money he can make. I don't care. I don't care if Will makes money or not. I don't care if it's a good fit, because it's not. Because everybody the 13.5% of the people who said it said they don't want it. They said, but it's someplace else. I don't see what the debate is. I really don't. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
One more on Zoom.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Okay, hi. This is with Mandy. My husband and I live at 23 Deheim Road. I did write a letter. It was very brief. I just want to say I haven't watched this whole meeting, but I think that what Mr. Curley just said is correct. The people have spoken. It's pretty straightforward. We've spent money on the survey. Nan said this is the best response she's ever seen of any town. So let's focus on Washington Hollow, the village, and the area right outside the village. Let's not go into RR10. Pretty straightforward, in my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
No one else?
Let's,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret.
Great help.
I'll just say, I think you ought to adopt the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
I don't know if we're going to debate it or talk about it, but I just wanted to add, because there was comments about size and viability. Oh, sorry. And, I do think, I think Mr. Curley, viable, that's relative, right? Because the White Hart Inn in Salisbury, I just Googled it while I was sitting here, has 16 rooms. And Troutbeck has 17 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to mention that, it's not like, maybe it's not as economically viable as one particular person would like it to be at 30 rooms or 20 rooms, but it doesn't mean it's not economically viable.
Right.
I guess
Okay.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
say that because we have two local examples of that. And I mean,
and I'm getting Alzheimer's. The committee also researched that.
Yeah.
And took that into consideration when they came up with their numbers.
yeah. Yeah. So I think it just, again, I think it's relative, right? So I guess with that, we have discussed this. I don't know. I think this was the purpose of the public hearing. Can we make a motion tonight to do that? I mean, is there?
You can, I think you,
Don't mind,
go ahead.
Yeah.
First of all, if you think the public hearing is over, you should.
Close it?
Make a motion to close it,
Yeah.
if that's what you
Okay.
want to do, so make a motion. to
Well,
second
before
vote.
we do that, we do have emails from people that spoke about the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
That I just want to go over, if you don't mind. It's part of,
Okay.
they've asked to be part of the record and they
Just
should be
text my
included as
babysitter.
part of the record.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the ones that speak specifically about the comprehensive plan.
Mhm.
Some are both. Just bear with me a moment. First one is Elizabeth and David Mandy. As residents of the town of Washington, we believe that the findings of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee should absolutely be attached to the 2015 Comprehensive Plan as a hospitality addendum. It was a full and complete survey and clearly demonstrates the will of the people of the beautiful town of Washington.
Who was that from?
Elizabeth and
Mandy.
David Mandy.
We just
yeah,
heard
she
from
just
her.
got-
She just spoke on that.
Jenny Coleman, 561 Burbank Road. As a town of Washington resident, I would like to convey my opinion that yes, the findings of the Comprehensive Plan Review Committee should become an addendum to the 2015 Comprehensive Plan. We have a couple that I'm going to read that speak to a little bit of MGDAL, but I think they're important that the people hear them. This is from Dana Drury, 250 Bengal Road. Dear town board members, I am in full support of small, 20 or fewer guest rooms, hospitality development within the existing commercial areas of the village, immediately outside of the village and in Washington Hollow. I'm strongly opposed to any overlay zoning and the development of large commercial resorts in the town of Washington. I am strongly opposed to the proposed MGDAL development right in the middle of our beautiful rural land and over our sensitive water supply. No hospitality development should be allowed in the R10 zones where our residents bought property expecting a quiet enjoyment of the countryside. No developers looking to turn a profit should have outsized influence our town zoning code or our decisions on what is right for our residents and community. Finally, I would like to request the town board members take swift action to update the language in our town code regarding membership clubs. Developers should not be able to use this as a loophole or backdoor for advancing their development projects, which are clearly for-profit endeavors. Our town is special, and we must continue to protect it. Thank you for considering my input. Gabe Bassin. Hello, my name is Gabe Bassin, and I live in Millbrook on Kennels Road with my wife Allie and son Bodie. My family and I have been here for 2 years, and we love it. Prior to this, we had been coming up on weekends, then weeks, the months for 5 years or so. Bodie goes to school in town, and we frequent the restaurants and stores that Millbrook has to offer quite often. We love the rolling hills, the countryside, the horses, the expansiveness. This is to say we adore Millbrook. This is our home, and we appreciate all it has to offer. We plan on being here indefinitely, so thus we take very seriously any change to the current status quo being proposed. Specifically, the discussion around hospitality piqued our interest quite significantly. Admittedly, I have not read every word of the 300-page comprehensive plan update, but I believe I understand it at a high level. It appears that the feedback from residents has been mostly pro-hospitality. Allie and I agree with this, but it is certainly nuanced. We think the right kind of hospitality is one that doesn't corrupt our beautiful views, drain precious resources, or drive tons of traffic causing congestion on our roads. All of those things are very important to us. At the same time, as a former hotel owner and management company owner, I know a decent amount about hotels and what it takes to operate them. I think we need to carefully consider the economic risk to the entrepreneurs who propose projects in the area. At the end of the day, it does not need to make economic sense for anyone looking to develop here. With that, I think it would be smart for us to debate the room count limits being proposed by the comprehensive plan. This doesn't mean we shouldn't have limits or caps or anything like that. What it means is that it should be discussed and fully understood by the town before making a decision on this. My view is what we do not want to happen is for the overwhelming number of residents to be pro-hospitality, but for the requirements of these projects to be so onerous that it makes it extremely hard for developers to make it work economically. Of course, the tension between these two forces needs to be managed with care and thoughtfulness. This is the utmost importance because it's my belief that no one wants a project that inflicts negative ramifications on the town and surrounding area. At the same time, we need to understand that running hotels is extremely operating and capital intensive, and any hotelier that comes to Millbrook is going to make it work pro forma in order for them to move forward. In my experience, the 20-room cap would present serious operating obstacles given the high-cost nature of the hotel business, never mind the particulars to renovate and establish a successful hotel. I look forward to seeing this discussion evolve, and I do believe that if the community really wants hospitality, we need to understand that all of the puts and takes from all stakeholders, town residents, adjacent landowners, local entrepreneurs, and developers. Thank you. Fernando spoke earlier, so I don't need to read his. Dominique Shumanova, 36 Maple Avenue. Elder Shumanov, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly, 36 Maple Avenue. To the town board, we are writing in support of adjusting the comprehensive plan or making exceptions to it to allow for some hospitality commercial use with sufficient community feedback and involvement where there are clear benefits for the community as a whole. We recently toured Migdale and heard their revised plan to have 45 rooms on 350 acres, which would allow the property to be open to the public. I'm going to skip the next paragraph. We are eager to be able to enjoy the premises. Again, he's talking about Migdale. We as a family enjoy frequenting Innisfree and Weathersfield and farther afield other former estates open to the public like Bartow Pell and Untermeyer. It would be a shame to see some of our estates go to ruin, be taken off the tax rolls, or sit vacant and inaccessible. We hope the town board carefully weighs and considers such proposals on a case-by-case basis with input from all stakeholders and together find ways to make them work that benefit the community. Thank you all for your hard work. This one is specifically about Migdale with no comments on the comprehensive plan. Same with this one. I'm writing, this is from Catherine Manzidoro. I'm writing to remind you all that we are not peasants anymore. We are free, independent voters and individuals who don't have to rely on our feudal lords or unknown friends of the town of Washington. We should be looking around and seeing how we as a town and village, and we do know the difference, can benefit from a comprehensive plan. The growth in the Hudson Valley and the benefit it entails should be a prime concern. We shouldn't sit back and let other communities reap all opportunities. Jen Glasson, and I believe she lives in the village, but I'm not certain.
She does live in the village.
Okay. I'm writing to communicate my support for the consideration of hospitality adjustments to the comprehensive plan. By and large, this will enable the continued review of the project being proposed.
I think it's a Migdale. I read that letter.
Okay. I'm going to skip And if you disagree and want me to read all the Migdal ones, please tell me, but do you know? Yes?
I don't think that's, I mean.
We couldn't. I mean, we didn't.
Okay.
These will all
Yeah,
be,
it's not-
but these will all be public.
They'll all be on the
Yeah,
website.
yeah.
It will not be
It's part of the
tomorrow.
record,
It will be
right.
a week
Correct.
from now, but they will all be
They
on.
will all be available.
They will all
for-
be
Correct.
available. Yeah. And that's, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So Jeff, if you want to talk about procedure.
Well, two things. If the board wants to close the public hearing, then you should do that. You should make a motion, second it, and vote on it. This is not something you can adopt tonight. There's an environmental assessment form that still has to be finished and circulated. So let's say next month's meeting would be the soonest you could adopt it. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
Okay.
Well, I'd just like to make a quick comment on my own. You know, being involved in town government for quite a long time, specifically on the ZBA for years. In my early years on the ZBA in the 70s, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know we had a comprehensive plan when I first got on. I was out of college. I didn't even know what a comprehensive plan was. And little by little, of course, I learned that what it was, but we never made a lot of reference to it. I think everything that came in front of us, we ruled on its merits. We listened to everybody and we ruled. So I would like to reiterate to everybody that our comprehensive plan is a guide. It's the voice of the people, the ones that spoke up. It's the voice of the ones that spoke up. And we need to weigh that whenever we do anything. So on the ZBA, on the planning board, and us as sitting here at this desk, I mean, I can't. It's hard for me to. I know the rules are the rules, and they say that 700 responses is unbelievable. But what about the other 4,000 people? I can't get that out of my head. I just can't get it out of my head. I know we mailed them all a survey, and but again, I'll go back. I like our comprehensive plan. I'm not adject to putting this in the comprehensive plan. I think they did a heck of a job, a really good job on it. I have some reservations that some people view the comprehensive plan as the law, and it's not the law.
You want a motion to close the public hearing?
Yeah.
I'll make that
Wait,
motion.
please just give me a minute. Thank you. Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing on the adoption of the study from the group to be added as an addendum. We're using the word
Yes,
addendum
yeah.
Yep.
to the current comprehensive plan.
Does that mean we can't open it again, right? So
Public hearing will
Public
be
hearing is
closed.
closed, yeah.
Correct, Jeff?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Unless you feel you want to leave it open, we can do that.
I mean, to me, we had a great, we sounds like we might have blown the fire code tonight, right, James? Or not really. I don't want to stress you out. I'm not putting it on the record. We
I
didn't
counted
officially.
right. We had 32
32.
responses, including.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And of course we have this document. So
So I'll
I don't-
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Now that we've done that, I have a question of procedure. There were certain things brought up tonight, quite predominantly the 20 that got
Number of
plugged in
rooms.
there, the number of rooms.
Right.
Can we, and you kind of alluded to it, bring Nan back and say, this is what we've heard in our comment to the document?
I propose to email Nan tomorrow and say that.
Well, that's what I mean, contact her.
Yes,
Get it.
I will do
How
that.
do you handle those?
They have a good thing in there about
yeah,
the number of
they
rooms.
have the
they do.
scale and they have the location. I mean, to me, listen, I appreciate all the public feedback, right? But having a handful of comments from a couple of people who are, in some cases, not all, there are people who are not involved in a project. There are other people who are involved in a project. We have to look, we really have to look at this, in my view, this process and this document and the feedback that we got
Well, I
tonight.
wasn't alluding to specifically that number. I was looking to explain to me, if we do adopt it, can we, as we move forward in trying to incorporate some of these recommendations into our existing laws, we as a board, with input maybe from other committees like zoning and planning or CAC, start to craft the language using some of this testimony, some of the recommendations, to plug those into where then they become a proposed local law on certain things, certain restrictions, certain codes. That's what I envision this to be, a reference material added to an existing document that now gives us more input from the community, some of whom weren't around when the other comprehensive plan was formalized and won't be around when the next one is, that we can take that and then mold it. Because quite frankly, aside from that number, I was reading some things. There is a clause in there that talks about what you can do with your roads, what you can do with your rural roads, which we're trying to talk about now. Adopting that as a finding from what the community said gives us some material to say, with this other Killarn Road or any of the roads, this is what the community has said to us, and it helps us make decisions.
Plus, we're scheduled for another 2 years to go over the comprehensive plan anyway.
Correct. But that's the whole document. This was specific to hospitality. I think, as people have mentioned, the community agrees hospitality is important. It's now taking.
But here's what's difficult for me with that is people are criticizing, some people are criticizing the sample, but then they say everyone agrees on hospitality. So, it's like some people, we can't just cherry pick what we like about it and what we don't. I mean, I think we know who was on the committee. We hired experts. We had a really thoughtful process. We've got a great document here. We took in public feedback. And I agree with you, Mike. We should have a conversation and figure out how
we pull this stuff out and use it.
There might be somebody who comes to us and wants to, the Cottonwood, for example, or might say, we really have to have 31 rooms, right? Okay.
Absolutely.
That's something that I think the ZBA and the planning board have to talk about.
And Bobby, to give you a kind of a peace of mind on the results of the survey, whenever someone that comes into the town that wants to do something under these new guidelines is still going to have to go before zoning, and still going to have to go planning, and the public then has another voice. That becomes a survey in itself.
Absolutely.
So that's my only, as long as this is not stone, as you said. Oh, no. They are recommendations.
I mean, we've done
but they are professionally done,
that don't follow the
all glory to that committee for doing this and helping us start to get a grasp on this and guiding us in a way.
But Jeff, just to clarify that, New York law, I mean, your comprehensive plan really is your guide. It's your vision. It's your sentiment, and we can't do something, for example, the 2015 plan and this addendum, both are consistent in that people want a rural community, want rural character, they want all of these things. And they, that has to be our guide among all the other things that are in it, right? But it's not specific necessarily. That's where we have to get into the devil's in the details, though, right?
Your zoning law is supposed to be based upon the planning principles in your comprehensive plan.
Yes.
Okay. There are some specific recommendations here, and one is, it says inns should be limited in size with a 20-room limit while offering some flexibility for increase or decrease in room density. So there's
but it gives there's a formula in there, Jeff.
There is.
And then there's also like, say you build your inn and you have environmental, and then you get more of a percentage for that. And anything exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to me, the way I read that, the reason why that's the sweet spot, the 20, and that's why residents probably, I mean, I can't remember how I responded. I think I did, the 20 was my number too, is because if you don't have some place to put your, right? You're not gauging what we're really talking about. And what people are really talking about, I think, in my view, based on my read of this, is they want it to be in the character of the community. They don't want some large thing.
Right, but
and so you have to put a number somewhere to give a scope, right?
Just because you have a number, say you have 40, right? And then people have this fear that, oh my gosh, we're going to give permission for a Holiday Inn. Well, that can't be possible because there's so many other restrictions.
Right.
There's architectural concerns.
Yeah, but if you had, nobody put that there, but because let's say you had 40, let's say people responded and they say what they want, because there were those options. There was 30, there was 50 or whatever. Yeah. If that was your middle point or that was your sliding scale, that means you could, then you could, and it'd be 50. I think people are trying to say to us, this is what I think, the people are saying, we want the 16 rooms at the White Hart, 17 rooms at Troutbeck. Now maybe it has to be 30 or whatever, but they want that kind of feel and character of a rural country inn, like the White Hart, which is a viable business and has a restaurant and everything else. That's what I think the people have said in this document.
How many are in the White Hart?
The White Hart has 16 guest rooms. I just Googled it while we were sitting here. And the Troutbeck has 17. So
White Hart only has 16 rooms?
16
Is that
guest rooms.
in the main building maybe? Because they have a big, like an
I don't
inn.
know. I just went to the website and they said
Okay.
16 appointed guest
Yeah,
rooms.
because they have like an inn behind it, I think. Or maybe they call it something different.
So by closing the hearing now, or the public input,
Which you did already by
Yeah.
motion.
now we either move on to adopting it tonight, or we direct you to
No,
come
no,
back
no,
with
no.
your,
They need an environmental assessment.
correct, so
form
let's move to
first,
that.
so-
That's what.
And then you have to decide whether you're going to adopt it as is or whether you're going to make any changes.
Correct.
That's up to you.
Well, just getting
Thank you.
back to the comprehensive plan itself, is that, we look at the comprehensive plan, but we've had people come in front of us that wanted to do things that were, almost definitely against the comprehensive plan in certain areas. I'm not going to mention anything. And everybody was for it. And we gave variances and planning board approvals for things that are against our comprehensive
I
plan.
think because
Because it's a living document and it changes.
Correct.
And if you catch it at the end of a 5-year period where we haven't looked at it for a while, things change.
but I think the proposal itself, like you said, and everybody wanted it, if that proposal itself got before planning and zoning with public input, and the public supported it,
Right.
it doesn't mean it violated the comprehensive
No,
plan.
but-
It meant that you had it as a guide, but the real application itself
Correct.
was
It's
approved
exactly
by
what-
those that had an
Yeah.
opportunity
That's
to
happened
voice their opinion,
several times.
and then the voice on the board.
Right.
And I think that's
And this
the
does not-
amalgamation
right.
that occurs between comprehensive
Yeah.
plan
Right.
and what is your law.
So this does not stop that from happening.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's, I mean, you would know, because does it give someone grounds to, is there as long as you can, is what and the decisions of the planning and zoning, they can defend it as being consistent with the vision of this document. I think that's where there's flexibility in the room numbers and things like that, but I don't think that you can go outside of that too much, because I think that's where you can have Article 78s.
Yeah, that's
Your
correct.
zoning law is
Could.
supposed to be based upon the
Right.
comprehensive plan. If you amend it, that means the amended comprehensive.
But that's
Yeah.
what a ZBA is for too,
Correct.
is to, guide through those laws.
And there are parameters in that we
Right.
taught. That's why they came up with that sliding scale, because they didn't want to
Right.
give, they wanted to, if the public supported it and it made sense for where it was and what was being proposed and people felt comfortable with it, and it was in that realm of what we're all sort of, in my view or interpretation, that people sort of see things in a certain character, then I think that would be within this plan. That is covered in this plan, in my read of it, anyway. So Jeff, what is the environmental review process? So when you're saying, is that what Nan said is sort of the next step it goes to?
An environmental assessment form, you know,
Okay.
part 1, and part 2, and part 3, it needs to be prepared and circulated. Get to work on that.
Okay, but there's no hearing on that form per se.
No, not on
Okay.
the environmental assessment form, no, and quite often you might want to hold a public hearing before you prepare the form so that you get comments, so you know what to address in part in the form.
So let me ask a question about that survey that takes place. Could that survey, when it's done, the results trump some of the things that are recommended by the committee?
The environmental assessment form is based upon the proposal that you have before
Correct.
you.
But you're saying you might want to hold a public input from that. So we're going to get comments from CAC, we're going to get comments from people who are concerned about the waters and so on. That builds up evidence of perhaps some of the things that may have been suggested aren't feasible.
Right, you'll have to look at the environmental
Correct.
assessment form as part of adopting whatever you choose to adopt. That's right.
Okay.
In our town, I know some things we have to send to the planning board, ZBA for comments, specifically local laws on certain matters. Is that the same with a comprehensive plan or this?
I don't know, that'd be easy enough to look up in the town
Yeah.
code, so.
Okay.
By the way,
answer
I
quickly.
think that Nan, when she, I don't know, but if you're going to email to her tomorrow, that'd be great to ask her that, because I think she gave us sort of a summary overview of what those steps are and who needs to look at it. So she might be able to answer it quickly too.
May I make two observations that are agnostic? They're neither pro nor for. Is that okay?
Sure.
Leslie is spot on, in my view, that you cannot have a zoning law that conflicts with your comp plan. That's often how, something may be very, a good example is solar. There are a lot of things that towns have solar laws that are permitted, but they conflict with the comp plan because of view sheds, and they're defeated based on that. Secondly, on the Troutbeck project, because I represent the homeowners association, the Troutbeck EAF indicates that there are 38 rooms. I was going to point that out. I don't know, I've been to Troutbeck, but the EAF
Yeah.
says 38 rooms.
I just went to their website and it said 17.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
Looking at the EAF, they're applying for a large expansion, an interesting debate, but in the EAF, it says 38. That's what I want to tell you. I don't doubt that we
Yeah.
look at that. Thank you.
Anything else? No?
Did
How
we?
about, you okay, Mary?
Well, did we, I know we had a
We did.
motion and a second on closing the public
Yeah, we
hearing.
closed it.
Yeah, we did.
They voted on it?
Yeah.
All right, so.
Now,
let
do
me
we
just-
need a motion on the other
Just-
thing?
No.
And you all voted in favor to close the public
Yeah.
hearing?
All right.
Thank you.
You don't want to stay and pay the bills?
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, God. I might have to abandon you
We gotta
guys. I
pay
have a
bills now.
babysitter at my house who's
Go ahead.
16.
Go ahead.
It's okay. I can get started in
Is there
that.
anything else from the community?
No, I hope not.
We need a
So
motion to,
Well, do you want to give, hi, how are you? Hopefully give people any chance to speak on any other matters besides what we just talked about. Like
Not
we usually
really.
give people.
No.
Okay. Okay.
gonna pay the bills.
I want to say that to the people on Zoom.
Yes. Off. Yes.
So I need a motion to pay the, well, no, motion to pay the bills.
To pay the bills.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep, I'll make that
I
motion.
make the motion to pay the bills.
Second.
I'll
All
second.
right, all in favor? Aye.
One other, it's a motion to pay the bills. Before, don't close yet, Margaret. Okay. You know, the annual audit of accounts that's normally done at the reorg meeting.
Right.
Do you want to make a motion to postpone it to either another meeting or next, in the February meeting? Or do you want to do that tonight?
No, not tonight.
Okay, so I need a motion on that then, before we proceed.
We'll make a
Can you
motion.
repeat it, what you just, so we can get the motion
Yes.
back to exactly what
One
you
of
need?
the item, after the review of claims, the annual audit of the accounts, bless you,
Thank you.
of the town supervisor, the bookkeeper, the town clerk, and the tax collector are generally held at this meeting.
Okay.
So because of the time, you may, if you wish, you can postpone that to a later
Does Mike
date.
know that we're still in a meeting?
Mike?
Like, the meeting's still going on?
No.
You guys ended.
Nope.
No. We're discussing the annual audit of claims, of accounts by the board. So the board's feeling is that we postpone it to another time, probably the February meeting. So if that, I need a motion stating that, if that's
Okay.
the choice of the board.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't heard it.
I'll make that
Okay,
motion.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now we're done.
Not
No,
yet?
not yet. Howard, hold on.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
safe drive back.
Yeah.
Where are you coming from? You?
I live in Sarasota. So.
Oh,
Ooh,
gosh.
wow.
Oh,
How much-
gosh.
You gotta
Back
be
there
careful,
now?
it's getting
I got a
icy.
Subaru. We're good.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Careful.
Oh, they don't-
Wonderful night,
You
everyone.
too.
Oh, thank you. You too.
They slip on
Yeah.
ice,
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, so we are going to do the claims now, and we won't be doing any other business
No.
beyond that. So,
It
yes,
can go off.
we may turn it off now.
Do we close the meeting to pay bills and then
Yeah.
you don't read?
We did that, so.
We did the
we're
motion.
Now
to
we
pay
need
the
a
bills.
motion.
Now we just pay the bills.
Yes, yeah. And I just gotta get them. But
Yeah,
you
well,
would
they're
you-
here.
would you
Forgive
They're
me
here.
if I
Go ahead.
so